Chapter 271. Miss Chow had no idea that her classmate, Aoyi, had asked her for compensation. She sat on Blue Phoenix's back, her face hurting from the strong wind. Then he activated the eggshell defensive barrier, blocking out the wind that was blowing against his face. Xiaomu pursed her lips and knelt on Blue Phoenix's back with a serious expression. She placed her hands on her knees and sat upright. Although Blue Phoenix's flying speed was astonishing, it was very stable. It flew out of Chou's largest city, Five Moon City, in a flash. It retracted its wings and landed outside the city. However, they were too eye-catching as they flew through Chou's borders, causing a commotion in Five Moon City. However, no one chased after them, and Xiaomu didn't want to know the reason. Right now, she was so angry that her stomach was about to explode. She looked up and saw large stretches of undulating mountain ranges. They were covered in snow all year round. That should be the snowy mountain that her master had mentioned. After Qing Luan landed on the ground, it put her down and retracted its pair of long wings. Its entire body shrank. At this moment, Qing Luan had completely transformed into a fluffy little chick. If its blue feathers were to turn yellow, then it would truly be a little yellow chick. The little chick flapped its short wings and flew to Arbor's shoulder. It nuzzled its head against her neck, purely to show its goodwill. However, the flattery backfired. Arbor immediately punched Weak Chick. Her face darkened as she chased after Weak Chick, who was flapping its wings wildly. "I'll beat you to death." Xiaomu angrily chased after it and gave it a good beating. Newbie was so scared that it cooed and kept flapping its little wings to run away pitifully. "Come here." This damn chick still dared to pretend to be weak and cute. She would beat it to death. It had just defeated so many people, and now it was still pretending. Why didn't it ascend to heaven? No, it had already ascended to heaven. Oh. The little chick ran quickly. It flapped its short wings and flew up and down. One adult and one chick, one human and one chick, dashed up the mountain path. The little chick suffered 2 punches on its head. After being roared at by the child, it pathetically stopped running. It folded its wings and curled up on a rock, lowering its head to admit its guilt. The child who had been chasing after them had a flushed face and was panting heavily. Master, why did you hit me?" Little Chick asked with a face full of confusion. "I really don't understand Master's world." He thought that if he revealed his true form and revealed his strength, Master would definitely like him. However, the reality was so spicy that it made people sad. "Are you still going to pretend?" The child scolded, and his little hands unconsciously went to his waist. He said angrily, "If you don't pretend, you scammer. Do I need to be jolted on the road for more than 10 days? You should be able to fly there in a few hours." Coo. Little Chick's face was filled with confusion. "Fuck your sister." He obviously knew how to speak, yet he pretended not to understand. The kid was so angry that he grabbed a tree branch and swung it at the little chick. Coo. Coo. Little Chick flew all the way up the mountain along the snowy white path. Coo. Little Chick stopped and Arbor also stopped. Many people had appeared on the mountain path ahead. They were lining up along the main mountain path. When Xiaomu looked up, she could vaguely see a magnificent mountain gate. The 3 words Holy Water Sect were engraved on it. However, what was up with these people lining up? Chapter 272. Excuse me, uncle. Auntie. Sister-in-law. Hey. Hey. Excuse me, excuse me. Excuse me. The little fellow had short legs and a small body, so she was stuck in the sea of people. Seriously, it was almost impossible to fish her out. The adults who were patted all turned their heads and looked down. Only then did they see a scowling little girl running past their waists. This child. Stop. Child. Why are you cutting the line? Line up at the back. Right, line up. Don't think you can cut the line just because you're young. We've been lining up here for a long time. That's right, this child doesn't have any etiquette at all. Back, line up. Xiaomu was immediately blocked by several aunties on the mountain path. She tilted her head and looked at the holy water sect in the distance. It was at least 1,000 steps away. Every step on the winding mountain path was packed with people of all ages. For some reason, the line was so long that she couldn't see the end of it. Speaking of which, Why was she cutting the line when she was returning to her own sect? Xiao Mu took a step back and looked at the aunties and sisters-in-law blocking her way with wide eyes. She couldn't help but frown. Why are you lining up here? Hey? This child. You're still acting like you don't know what's going on. Oh, you're so young, but you're quite scheming. Then why did you come here? An older sister-in-law said to Xiao Mu with a glare as she clutched a shy 12-year-old girl next to her. I came to find my master. Xiao Mu impatiently tried to squeeze through the crowd. Stop. Who didn't come to find master? That's right. This child is too. Where are your parents? They didn't bring you to line up. Another auntie angrily scanned Arbor while holding her 8 or 9-year-old granddaughter's hand. You also came to find master? Shit. Murong Sun kept saying that she was exceptionally talented and would only have her as her last disciple in her life. Murong Sun cried and begged to carry her back to the sect and even used that mystical treasured land to lure her back. What was going on now? So many people came to find her. She actually took in so many disciples? Big liar. Liar. My master took you in? That's impossible. These aunties didn't look like mystic cultivators. Why did master take them in? Bring her back to do laundry, cook, and mop the floor? What are you talking about? Didn't you also come for the Holy Water Sect's annual opening ceremony to accept disciples? At this moment, there were even more people surrounding her. All the older sisters-in-law reached out to block Xiao Mu's path. He surrounded a short child and scolded, You're even calling him master. Who is your master? My master is First Peak's Murong Sun. The little stoic said seriously. Boo! Ha 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 ha. The onlookers were actually laughing. Yo, this child at such a young age even knows about Peak Master Murong of the First Peak. This is too funny. Peak Master Murong hasn't accepted a personal disciple for so many years. He can't even come up with a better lie. That's right. It would be more believable if you told us that the second Peak's Peak Master Yang or the third Peak's Peak Master Lu is your master. Ahahaha. The crowd burst into laughter as if they were watching a joke, and Arbor was speechless for a moment. Caw. The little chick who was squatting on Arbor's shoulder suddenly jumped as if it was about to explode. Arbor hastily reached out to grab the little Saiyan chick. These aunties and uncles were just a bit bored and had bad mouths, but they weren't like those Cho soldiers who wouldn't shrink from any crime. They couldn't withstand Qinghuan's icy breath. Chapter 273. The child hugged a chick and looked adorable, but her face was a bit stoic and did not have much of an expression. Anyway, don't cut the line. Go line up. A plump woman pouted and waved her hand at Arbor. Arbor turned to look at the mountain gate that seemed to stretch to the horizon and sighed in her heart. Why didn't she see a single senior sister? Opening the mountain gate and accepting disciples was such a big event, so there should be many disciples coming out to receive them. Where were eldest senior sister and second senior sister? She didn't see the senior sisters she was familiar with from second and third peaks either. Xiao Mu looked down at the red carp jade pendant in her hand. Murong Sun tossed her the sect token before she left, and the words First Peak were engraved on the back of the jade pendant. If she randomly met a senior sister and showed it to her, it should be enough, right? Xiao Mu looked up and saw a little girl in red about 10 years old waving at her from the top of the stairs 20 steps ahead of her. Soon a blue-clothed maidservant ran down and pulled Xiao Mu's hand. She said to the aunties around them, This is our family's child. Sorry, make way. That maidservant pulled Xiao Mu's hand and squeezed her way back to the little girl in red. Little sister, are you okay? The little girl patted Arbor's shoulder and smiled at her, revealing a small dimple on her left cheek. Xiao Mu woodenly shook her head. You're also here to participate in the Holy Water Sect's entrance test, right? Don't be scared, just stay by my side. You? Are you also from the nearby Cho Kingdom? The little girl in red was dressed in a neat riding outfit, but she was valiant and formidable at such a young age. It did not seem like she was from the Cho Kingdom. No. The little girl shook her head. We're from the Alava tribe in the west. I'm Doya. What about you? What's your name? And my name is Arbor. The little stoic answered. However, she thought, Holy Water Sect's entrance test is such a big event, so it must have spread all over the world. No wonder there are so many people lining up here. Doya smiled, and the dimple on her left cheek deepened. She reached out to rub the little stoic's frozen face. Little sister, don't pull a long face. It should be our turn to be tested very soon. Then, as Miss Doya had said, it should be very soon. Damn, it was not until the sun had set in the west that they finally saw 2 or 3 people in front of them. It was almost their turn to be tested. Xiao Mu was so depressed that she wanted to squat on the floor and draw circles. After queuing for so long, he finally saw his own sect. If he had known earlier, he would have asked his senior sisters for a sect messaging talisman. Stretch out your left hand. 2 female disciples were sitting in front of the mountain gate. They had set up a long table. At this time the sky was slightly dark, but the rows of stone troughs on both sides of the mountain gate were already burning with raging flames, clearly reflecting everyone's faces. Arbor glanced at them and found that she didn't know any of the 2 female disciples who were sitting or those who were standing behind them, but that was to be expected. The only holy water sect disciples she knew were the 7th fairy's daughters. They were the top disciples of their peaks, so they probably wouldn't do such a boring reception job. Darling Xiao made up her mind to flash her identity token when she went up later. How could there be such a scam like returning to the sect? However, wasn't the holy water sect's test a bit too sloppy? The senior sister just now had a 9-year-old girl stretch out her hand, and then poured a drop of water into her hand from a jade bottle. Several seconds later, she took back that drop of water and expressionlessly said, "You didn't pass." Next. Chapter 274. Several little girls who went up in succession failed and ran down while sobbing and covering their faces. Doya and Arbor looked at each other in bewilderment. Doya couldn't resist asking, "I wonder how that water droplet is tested? Why is it immediately tested after dripping a drop of water on it? Who the hell knew what kind of lousy test this was?" Xiao Mu's face was stoic, but she couldn't deny her disdain for her sect. Wasn't this a waste of time? Dripping a drop of water on each of them was considered a test? If this happened to her, she might not be able to pass this crazy test. Next. Doya suddenly gripped Arbor's small hand tightly. She took a deep breath and quickly walked up. A drop of water landed on Doya's left palm. A few seconds later, the water droplet actually rolled back and forth in Doya's palm, emitting a soft glow. This glow was held in Doya's palm as if she was holding a wisp of bright moonlight, illuminating her spotlessly white and flawless face. It was very beautiful. Xiao Mu dazedly stared at that glow. Whoa! This water droplet really had a bit of a name. Previously, no one reacted because that water droplet looked down on them. The 2 holy water sect senior sisters behind the long table revealed faint smiles and nodded at Doya. Very good. Pass and stand behind us. Oh, so the 4 girls standing behind the 2 holy water sect senior sisters had passed the test. Wow, including Doya, there were only 5 people. There had probably been over 10,000 people tested earlier. Only 5 out of 10,000 people. This probability was too low. Doya's dimples deepened as she smiled. She turned around and gestured for Xiao Mu to work hard before excitedly standing behind the 2 senior sisters. Next. The 2 holy water sect senior sisters were startled when they saw Xiao Mu walking up. Wasn't this child too young? Many people surged up the steps behind them and squeezed between the first and second steps to watch the test. They all whispered to each other and asked about the test. When they saw the child, the women who were blocking her earlier all pursed their lips in disdain. This child is so young. She definitely won't pass. That's right. If it was that easy to pass, so many people wouldn't have been eliminated. Xiao Mu bounced in front of her 2 senior sisters and reached out to touch the red fish jade pendant in her pocket. Stretch out your left hand. You don't need both hands, one of the senior sisters said softly. Yes, don't be nervous. It won't hurt. The other senior sister also nodded, thinking that Arbor was so nervous that he didn't know where to put his hands and feet. Xiao Mu was speechless. What's wrong? There are still so many people who haven't finished the test yet. Master. The 2 female disciples stood up at the same time and bowed respectfully to the person who had come. The newcomer looked to be around 26 or 27 years old. She was dressed in a purple dress with purple bamboo embroidered on the hem. She had a smile on her face and looked like she wouldn't keep a straight face no matter who she met. It's fine. You guys continue. Master is just here to take a look. The second peak's peak master, Yang Shirong, covered her mouth and smiled. In an instant, murmurs could be heard from all directions. All the sisters-in-law and uncles who were holding on to their children became excited. This was the second peak's peak master Yang. If she saw how outstanding their children were during the test, she would definitely take them in as her disciple immediately. Alright, let's begin the test. Little sister, stretch out your left hand. Xiao Mu had a puzzled look on her face. She had just taken out the jade pendant from her pocket when her left hand was pulled over. A drop of ice-cold water that seeped into her bones dripped onto her small palm. Suddenly, the drop of water emitted a bright and flawless light in the child's palm. A blinding white light spread out from her palm. Compared to Doya's faint soft light from before, this was what it meant to be truly radiant. In an instant, it cut through the night and illuminated the surroundings. Chapter 275. Yang Shirong's eyes widened in shock. The gentle expression that had never changed for 10,000 years had long since disappeared. What replaced it was shock. Shock. And shock again. Here, quick, give her another drop. Yang Shirong's eyes narrowed in excitement as she stared at the child who was standing there dumbstruck, as if she was afraid that the child would be taken away immediately. He hurriedly got up and walked quickly to the child. She gently pulled the child's left hand and dripped another drop of water onto her palm. In a daze, everyone's vision was taken away by a blinding white light. Nothing in the world could block the blinding light. It was only when the 2 drops of water slowly seeped into the skin of the child's palm that the terrifying and dazzling light gradually faded away. Yang Shirong's mouth was agape for less than a second before she pounced on the child like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. The child was startled and her eyes widened as she subconsciously took a few steps back. But how could she be a match for Peak Master Yang? Peak Master Yang hugged her tightly and pulled her into her arms. Good disciple, quickly follow Master back to the second peak. Master and disciple are indeed fated to meet even though we're thousands of miles apart. Look, it's already so late, but Master can still bring you back. Ha 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 ha. Master's trip here was not in vain. Yang Shirong hugged the child tightly in her arms as if she was hugging a precious treasure. The child uttered a few syllables. Master, am I? Hey, good disciple. Don't speak, it's already so late and you must be tired. Master will bring you back to the second peak to rest. Then, without waiting for the child to speak, she flew away with a whoosh. Her speed was so fast that it was as if something was chasing after her. Why was it so bright just now? Could it be that the divine water has a particularly large reaction to someone? Sui floated past. A cold and beautiful woman suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Greetings, Uncle Master. Han He and Lu Yun recovered from their shock and hurriedly bowed. Who's so talented? To be able to emit such a dazzling light. This was something that had never happened before. Han He said, yes, it's a disciple that Master just took in. Master has already brought her back to the second peak. Lu Yun snorted heavily. Han He didn't even dare to tell Martial Uncle Lu that the little junior sister whom Master had snatched away just now had such astonishing talent that she had actually absorbed 2 drops of God's water into her body. TSK, if you want to take in a disciple, then so be it. It's as if you want to snatch him away. You didn't even show your face and snatched him back to the second summit. A mocking voice followed. She didn't even need to see who it was. She knew it was eldest Antmaster Murong Sun just by hearing that carefree smile. Greetings to Martial Uncle Murong. Murong Sun casually waved her hand. This peak master merely saw the commotion here, so I came to join in the fun. It's nothing special, so go about your business. After she finished speaking, she leaned against the long table with a smile on her face and winked at Han He as she said, Little Heezy, what kind of disciple did your master take in just now? He ran away in such a hurry. It's not like it can't be exposed. That junior sister with great talent. Murong Sun was displeased when she heard this. She snorted and turned her head away while waving her hand. No matter how talented she is, she's not as talented as my youngest disciple. Your master picked up a pretty good one and treated her like a treasure. In the future, I'll let her experience what it means to truly have outstanding talent and be as smart and adorable as snow. Chapter 276. Lu Yun abruptly harumphed and looked behind Han He. These are the ones who passed the test? Yes, Aunt Master. Lu Yun waved her hand at Doya and the short girl next to her. The two girls' faces flushed with excitement, and they immediately ran over. What are your names? Follow me back to Third Peak. Doya immediately smiled, revealing her deep dimples. She hastily nodded and said, Master, this disciple's name is Doya. This disciple's name is Zhangyu. The girl called Zhangyu was half a head shorter than Doya. But she was chubby and much wider than Doya. Her grape-like eyes swiveled around, looking very clever and quick-witted. Yes, you two will follow me back to Third Peak. Lu Yun nodded aloofly. Wait, you little fellow. Murong Sun's figure swayed, and she arrived in front of Zhangyu, lifting her off the ground. Lu Yun's aloof face darkened, and she glanced at Murong Sun. Senior sister Murong, what are you doing? I'll take these two disciples. You can do whatever you want with the rest. Murong Sun rolled her eyes at Lu Yun. I've already taken in a closed-door disciple, so I won't take in disciples in the future. What did she care about? Compared to her stoic-faced disciple, these, and these were all too lacking in aptitude. They simply couldn't enter her eyes. Greetings, Aunt Master Murong. Zhangyu, who was being carried by Murong Sun, said with trepidation. Don't call me Aunt Master yet. Murong Sun narrowed her eyes and shook Zhangyu in her hand. You brat, you still want to trick me? You're a boy, right? Her words stirred up 1,000 ripples that the spectators were all dumbfounded. They had yet to recover from the news that a child who appeared to be 7 or 8 years old had just passed the Holy Water Sect's bizarre test in a high-profile manner, and was carried away by Second Peak's Peak Master Yang like a treasure. At this moment they were struck dumb by this wave. What? Everyone in the world knew that Holy Water Sect did not accept male disciples. Could it be that this child planned to disguise herself as a girl and sneak into Holy Water Sect? Zhangyu started sobbing and whining delicately. I'm not a boy. Murong Sun thoughtfully glanced at Zhangyu and sarcastically said, How about you take off your pants? Why don't I take off your pants? Zhangyu's face immediately turned red. The surrounding crowd was fired up, and they all scolded. A boy like you actually wants to sneak into the Holy Water Sect? Isn't that so? How did the adults in your family teach your children? How could they even think of something as ridiculous as cross-dressing? Isn't this taking up a slot? Seriously, by the looks of it, a peak master would at most take in 1 or 2 disciples. Yet this brat wanted to snatch a spot. This was simply unforgivable. At this moment, a rotund middle-aged man jumped out from the crowd and pointed at the crowd angrily. You talk too much. My son clearly passed the test. How can you not let him enter the school? My son has been raised like a little girl since he was young. You can just treat him like a little girl. Besides, he had clearly passed the test. No, you can't throw us out. You can't throw him out. The fat middle-aged man was already held up by 2 female disciples. He stomped his 2 short legs and roared angrily. Our dear Zhangyu even hugged Murong Sun's arm and wailed loudly, continuously wiping away his tears. Aunt Master, accept me. I'm a miss. Murong Sun, Lu Yun. Everyone. What an odd pair of father and son. Unheard of, unseen. Chapter 277. Murong Sun did not know whether to laugh or cry as she waved her hand. Invite them down the mountain. The first rule of the Holy Water Sect was that they did not accept male disciples. Even if you could say something nice, it was still not allowed. Little Zhangyu wept as he slid down the ground. Adhering to the principle of hugging someone's thigh, he tightly hugged Murong Sun's leg and refused to let go. Aunt Master, take me in, Aunt Master. The little fellow thumped his chest and stomped his feet as he wailed. Murong Sun, how did this Peak Master meet such a weirdo like you? Third Peak's Peak Master Lu's expression was a bit awkward. She hastily picked another little girl and led her back to Third Peak with Doya. Murong Sun glared at Lu Yun's fleeing figure and harumphed. She forcefully pulled that weirdo off of her. Why aren't you sending the father and son down the mountain yet? Murong Sun was not in the mood to continue watching the test, so she swiftly left this place in a flash. As expected, her disciple was the least annoying when it came to children. She liked them just looking at them. As for our dear Qiao Mu, How could she have known that the entrance to the mountain would be so lively after the event? She also did not know that her unreliable master Murong Suan had come. Halfway through being carried back by Second Peak's peak master, Yang Shirong, she felt all the mystic energy in her mystic meridians roiling endlessly. This feeling was very similar to that she was about to advance. Previously, she had been stuck at the initial success stage of level 4 mystic cultivation, and had been stuck for a long time without any movement. So what was this inexplicable situation? Although she could sense a very dense mystic energy aura as soon as she entered the holy water sect, wasn't this too ridiculous? She had not even meditated to cultivate yet, so why did it feel like she was about to advance? Xiaomu quickly collected her thoughts and opened her dantian. She saw that her mystic meridian, which was originally hidden under the tree roots and securely wrapped by countless roots, was now exposed and endlessly absorbing the mystic energy roaming through her mystic meridians. Milky white mystic energy was rapidly flowing through her mystic meridians, which were different from all the other meridians in her body. Her mystic meridians swelled slightly and slowly expanded. Arbor could sense that her mystic meridians were slowly thickening with this subtle expansion. Her mystic meridians that were originally half a finger wide had now gradually expanded to be close to a finger wide. The widening of her profound veins meant that her profound veins would be able to accept even more profound energy, and her cultivation speed would definitely be much faster than before. "My dear disciple, you're about to break through," Peak Master Yang exclaimed. He hurriedly landed on the second peak with the child in his arms. Arbor didn't even have time to take a look at what the second summit was like before he was quickly brought to the second summit by Yang Shirong, to the cultivation room with the densest profound energy. "Disciple, don't worry. Master is right outside. Focus on advancing, don't be impatient. Also, don't rise too quickly all of a sudden. Maintain a steady state of mind. As cultivators, we must have a limit in our hearts and a bottom line. Advancing to a certain level is enough, even if there is still energy left over." This child looked like she didn't have any cultivation just now, so how did she suddenly display the cultivation of a level 4 mystic cultivator? How would Yang Shirong know that due to the fact that he was about to advance, the profound energy in Arbor's body was flowing so violently that it directly dispersed the aura concealing talisman's power? After the cultivation room closed, Yang Shirong was still worried and paced back and forth outside. The child looked too young, so she didn't even know if she understood what she said just now. Yang Shirong was worried that the child would be too excited and directly advance without any obstructions. This definitely wouldn't be beneficial to her future cultivation. 2 drops of sacred water had been absorbed into the child's body, so the effect of her advancement would definitely be very terrifying. She hoped everything would go smoothly. Chapter 278. Our dear Arbor felt very baffled. She simply didn't expect that the opportunity for her advancement this time was related to those 2 strange drops of water just now. She only thought that it was because the holy water sect's mystic energy was so dense that her stagnant realm suddenly loosened up. Arbor sat in the cultivation room and held her breath. She immediately sensed the endless mystic energy pouring in from the outside and entering her mystic domain through her rapidly agitating mystic meridians at a terrifying speed. The sapling Chochio in her dantian happily extended its branches and hurriedly absorbed the mystic energy continuously pouring in from the outside world. It sucked in mouthfuls at a speed not inferior to Arbor's absorption speed as it fought over mystic energy with its little master. Our dear Qiao Mu, who had long been accustomed to the deceptive tree bandits' methods, could already turn a blind eye to it and not care in the slightest. Right now she only felt a bit shaken. The mystic energy rapidly flowing in her mystic meridians was rushing into her mystic domain at a jaw-dropping speed. The barrier to the initial success stage of level 4 mystic cultivator was broken through in an instant. Our dear Qiao Mu quickly experienced what was called an abnormal advancement method. She watched helplessly as the barrier to the phenomenal success stage of level 4 mystic cultivator, and even the peak stage, was broken through, and she triumphantly advanced all the way to level 5 mystic cultivator. This kind of advancement speed caused Arbor to become vigilant. She looked inside her body again and saw that other than the milky white mystic energy continuously surging in her mystic meridians that were close to the width of a finger, there were also strands of an unknown silver substance that floated back and forth in her mystic meridians. Compared to the dense mystic energy, These strands of silver were pitifully few. However, Arbor's brows furrowed slightly. In her previous life, she had never seen this kind of silver substance in her mystic meridians. However, now was not the time to think about this. The urgent matter at hand was to suppress her rapidly advancing cultivation as soon as possible. Aunt Master Yang was right. Mystic cultivators had to have a limit when it came to mystic cultivation. They couldn't blindly advance rashly in their cultivation. It was better to stabilize it before advancing. She had broken through from the initial success stage of level 4 Mystic Cultivator to the phenomenal success stage of level 5 Mystic Cultivator in one go. Her mystic energy increased explosively without any signs of slowing down. This truly was a bit flustered. After absorbing so much profound energy in one go, his entire profound veins, including his profound domain, could be said to have expanded to the extreme. If this continued, it would be very easy for him to explode and die. Furthermore, if one were to advance too quickly, it might cause one's own realm to become unstable, which would not be beneficial to one's future cultivation. However, she couldn't stop it. The momentum of her advancement was like a ferocious tiger released from its cage, charging all the way up. She was a peak level 5 Mystic Cultivator. The barrier to level 5 Mystic Cultivator had been completely broken. She had entered level 6 Mystic Cultivation and was gradually reaching level 6 Mystic Cultivation. Xiao Mu was on the verge of tears. She subconsciously called out, "What about Qiu? I can't stop the momentum of my advancement." Qiu, this damn tree disappeared again? The sapling Qiu was silent for a while and couldn't help but ask, "Master, what are you worried about? I've advanced so quickly and absorbed so much profound energy into my body. Will I explode on the spot?" Qiu, "Master, are you an idiot? Why do you always have some weird thoughts in your head? If you don't want to absorb the profound energy, just tell me. I can absorb all the profound energy. This much profound energy is enough for me to grow 2 leaves. Besides, why do you think your realm advanced by leaps and bounds? Is it the stimulation of the profound energy in the outside world? It's not. It's actually because you absorbed 2 drops of sacred water." Little Arbor. Chapter 279. Then what do I do now? Hurry and help me stop. She didn't want to advance anymore. This advancement speed was so terrifying. It didn't feel like a normal human. Xiao Mu's heart was about to leap out of her chest as she watched herself break through the initial success and phenomenal success stages of level 6 Mystic Cultivation and charge toward the peak of level 6 Mystic Cultivation. "Master, are you really not going to consider directly breaking through the barrier of level 7 Mystic Cultivation?" Qiu tempted the little fellow. "Let me tell you, if you break through to level 7 Mystic Cultivation, Qiu can immediately help you assimilate the paradise. Hurry. Absorb the remaining holy water essence. Hurry. I don't want it anymore. Wah. What was this cheating tree still nagging for? It's precisely because I want Master to break through to level 7 Mystic Cultivation that I held back from snatching those 2 drops of holy water away." Qiu muttered inwardly and immediately wrapped Xiao Mu's mystic domain with its branches before burying it deep into its roots again. The remaining bit of holy water essence was completely absorbed by the sapling's roots. This process was extremely fast. 2 tender green leaves even immediately grew on the sapling's bare branches. Arbor immediately felt her entire body lighten, as all the mystic energy that was swarming into her body was instantly drawn away by the sapling. She heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly focused her mind and calmed her breathing as she sorted out the mystic energy flowing in her meridians and mystic meridians bit by bit. The child discovered in astonishment that the mystic domain that originally led to the depths of her dantian was naturally just a mystic meridian. But now, this mystic meridian actually had a fork. The fork was as thin as a line, but there was indeed a wisp of mystic energy slowly swimming within and extending to the mystic domain. Although it was very strange, the little fellow didn't have time to think about it in detail. She instantly charged from the initial success stage of level 4 Mystic Cultivation to the phenomenal success stage of level 6 Mystic Cultivation. She was only a small step away from breaking through to the peak of level 6 Mystic Cultivation. This leap was truly too large. Her heart was still thumping wildly in her chest. Her heart was in a mess, and she almost couldn't calm down immediately. Arbor tried her best to restrain her racing heartbeat and barely managed to calm her mind. She restrained her aura and completely blocked her 5 senses, forcing herself into a completely blank world. Little by little, he stabilized all the restless profound energy in his body, suppressing the rapid advancement of his realm. This sorting process proceeded very slowly, and it wasn't long before Qiao Mu was completely immersed in it, completely ignoring everything else. At the same time, the jubilant sapling was increasing its strength to extract the rich mystic energy from the outside world. When it was delighted to find that one soft and tender leaf after another was slowly emerging from the branches, the speed of its absorption suddenly increased. Profound energy, I'll give you as much as you can. Qiao howled in the depths of its heart. In the outside world, the dense mystic energy on the holy water sect's second peak was endlessly flowing toward the cultivation room Arbor was in a very strange manner. After that, the surging mystic energy on the second peak was far from enough to satisfy the bandit Qiao. The entire sect's 3 peaks, including the sect master's main peak, were all alarmed. Everyone ran out of the house as they stared in shock at the sky above, at that ball of profound energy that was so dense that it was almost turning gray. So much profound energy was moving towards one place at full speed, completely without a trace of reluctance. Holy shit! All the mystic energy was drawn to the second peak? What the hell is the second peak doing? Originally, the mystic energy on the sect's 3 peaks, and the main peak was evenly distributed. Today, this kind of balance was completely broken. Chapter 280. On the holy water sect's main peak, a row of simple bamboo buildings sat in the depths of a light green bamboo forest under a blanket of white snow. Even in this world of ice and snow, it was still verdant and lush. We still have enough food to eat for 3 months. Murong Sun lazily leaned against the brocade couch and expressionlessly stared at the sect master sitting across from her. The holy water sect's sect master was about 60 years old. Her appearance was unremarkable, and she wore an extremely simple blue and white robe. She had a benevolent countenance and a smile on her lips. She held a large palm leaf fan that maids used to light fires. It could be said that if this elderly lady was thrown into a crowd of people, she definitely wouldn't make a splash. She was completely an ordinary elderly lady from a farming family. The sect master's hand that was holding the palm leaf fan paused, and she sighed. That can't be helped. The world is difficult right now, and normal people are living worse off than us. How about this, Murong? Pass down the order that the entire sect's 800 disciples will have 1 meal every 3 days. Change it to 1 meal every 5 days. The sect master extended 5 fingers and waved them. Murong Sun's lips fiercely twitched. That she just knew this unreliable sect master would come up with rotten ideas all day long. The most important thing for us cultivators is to temper our body's toughness. Hunger tolerance is also a part of cultivation. The sect master said seriously. I haven't eaten a grain of rice for 10 days already, so I feel my body is very light and my condition is excellent. Rumble. The sect master's stomach made a very discordant noise. Murong Sun nearly burst out in laughter and looked at the elderly lady with ridicule. The sect master also felt embarrassed and coughed lightly. Master isn't hungry. As long as I enter closed-door cultivation right away, I'll enter a selfless state. At that time I naturally won't feel hungry. Murong Sun stood up and opened the bamboo door. She shouted outside, someone prepare food for the sect master. Wicked disciple. The sect master angrily put down the palm leaf fan in her hand. Actually, it's more practical to go to a nearby city and accept some missions when appropriate. Murong Sun turned around and leaned against the door, helplessly looking at the sect master. Mystic cultivators also needed to eat, so they couldn't completely abstain from eating. However, they could block out all the exhaustion in their body after a single closed-door cultivation, so they were more resistant to hunger than normal people. No. The sect master waved his hand. Children work hard and cultivate diligently every day. How can we tie them down with some mundane affairs? Here it comes again. This naive sect leader. Murong Sun speechlessly rolled her eyes. Master, entering the world is also a type of experience. You cultivate your heart and train your reflexes. In a battle, the ability to react is an indispensable part of one's strength. Master, the world has become a battlefield right now. Neither you nor I can protect ourselves. Murong Sun gazed deeply at the sect master. She could understand the sect leader's actions, but she did not approve of it. The sect master wanted to protect all the disciples, but this kind of blind protection was actually a way to weaken the strength of the sect. Flower buds that did not grow up in bloody battles. How could they experience the storms of the world in the future? The old lady was silent for a long time before she suddenly raised her head and asked, Sun, when will you take over the position of sect master? Bang! Murong Sun slammed the bamboo door shut, and it swayed so much that it nearly fell off. A disciple holding a bowl of porridge walked toward them and dazedly stood there, looking back at Antmaster Murong's fleeing figure. Wicked disciple! The sect master was so angry that she jumped up and slapped the brocade couch. At this time, the disciple carrying the porridge looked up at the sky and exclaimed in shock, Sect master, quickly come and look. The sect master angrily ran out of the bamboo building. Her gaze fixed on the ball of mystic energy that was so dense it was turning gray in the sky, and she immediately revealed a shocked expression. Chapter 281. All the mystic energy went to second peak? The sect master's brows involuntarily twitched. What was this troublesome second disciple up to again? No, she had to go take a look. Whoosh! Whoosh! The sect master Murong Sun, Lu Yun of third peak, and several personal disciples of first and third peaks all appeared on second peak. Holy Water sect was the only sect among the three sects that did not differentiate between inner and outer disciples. Compared to Heavenly Tao sect and Daybreak sect, which had over 10,000 outer disciples, Holy Water sect only had a little over 800 disciples. It was truly pitifully few. All the disciples of the three peaks were the disciples of each peak master, so the pills, magnetite, and other cultivation resources they received were all treated equally. The only difference was that the three peak masters would accept several personal disciples. Compared to normal disciples, the master-disciple relationship was naturally more intimate, and they could also receive some personal gifts from their masters in private. Compared to the lowly and dispensable outer disciples of the other two sects, all the disciples of Holy Water sect lived in a honey pot. At this time, the little troublemaker, who was cultivating in seclusion on second peak, did not know that her commotion alarmed everyone in the sect. Young Shirong had long anticipated that her master and senior sister would come, so she was already waiting at the front door of second peak's main hall to welcome everyone. When she saw them appear, she ran over with a beaming face. Sect master, senior sister Murong, junior sister Lu, it's fine, it's fine. It's nothing major. If it's nothing major, why did you cause such a big commotion? The sect master glared at her second disciple and looked inside curiously. Aren't you going to bring master inside to take a look? Which grand disciple's cultivation aura is so great that it swept away all the mystic energy in the sect. So miraculous. She really wanted to see her obedient grand disciple. Young Shirong hastily stopped everyone and chuckled. No, you shouldn't go over to avoid disturbing my youngest disciple's advancement. Oh ha ha ha. She then winked at Murong Sun. Senior sister Murong, our second peak is going to win this year's competition between the three peaks again. Ha ha ha. How smug. Even Lu Yun, the third peak master, could not stand it anymore. She truly was a petty person intoxicated by success. Murong Sun threw peak master Yang a fierce look. In your dreams. Once my little disciple returns to the sect, this peak lord will definitely blind your dog eyes at seeing that his three disciples were about to quarrel again. The sect master hurriedly waved his cattail leaf fan and laughed. All right, since there's nothing else, let's go back to our respective peaks. As for the inner disciple competition of the three peaks, there were still 2 months to go. There was no need to rush. Wasn't he going to continue accepting disciples tomorrow? Maybe Asun will also receive a good one. There's no need. This peak master has already accepted a little disciple with exceptional aptitude. Counting the days, it's about time. She should be here in the next few days. Murong Sun angrily flung her sleeves and left. The sect master laughed awkwardly and gave his third disciple a look. Lu Yun's face was taut as she stiffly threw down these words. Second senior sister. Then we'll be leaving now. Don't be too cocky. As the saying goes, cocky people will be struck by lightning. Let the green hills never change and the green waters flow forever. Goodbye. Sect Master was speechless. Each of his 3 disciples was more unreliable than the last. What kind of nonsense was that? They only saw each other for a short while and started quarreling. Where did the sisterly love between fellow disciples in the same boat go? Yang Shirong laughed and happily sent off her master and senior sisters. She then ran back to the child's cultivation room to take a look. She only left after seeing that there was nothing out of the ordinary. However, because of the child's tantrum, all the mystic energy rushed to second peak, so the disciples from the other peaks could only pause their cultivation. Chapter 282. 3 days later, the instant the child opened her eyes, a pitch-black vortex swirled in the depths of her eyes before returning to calmness. Now that she had roughly stabilized her cultivation at the phenomenal success stage of level 6 Mystic Cultivator, she was within reach of the peak stage. She didn't need to be on guard in the sect, so she naturally didn't need to hide her cultivation with the aura-concealing talisman. Looking up at the small ball of thick mystic energy gathered above her head, Arbor couldn't help but ask, "Chocho, what's this ball for?" "Master, don't waste it. I left it for you." Burp. This fellow actually burped after absorbing mystic energy. How much mystic energy did it absorb? Arbor silently absorbed the small ball of mystic energy into her mystic meridians. After circulating it slightly, she was pleasantly surprised to find that after her mystic meridians widened, the speed at which she absorbed, stored, and digested mystic energy increased significantly. When this mystic energy entered her mystic meridians, it was like entering the ocean and was quickly digested by her body. Arbor sighed slightly. As expected, the mystic energy around her hadn't reached saturation. In other words, she could still continue to advance as long as there was enough mystic energy injected. But this way, her cultivation would advance too quickly. If she completed her advancement perfectly, she wouldn't be able to absorb mystic energy from the outside world for at least 24 hours when her mystic energy was at saturation. This was also a mystic cultivator's self-defense mechanism to prevent endless mystic energy from overloading their mystic meridians and causing their body to explode from being unable to withstand the external pressure. Suppressing the growth of one's cultivation realm was also an excellent embodiment of cultivating one's mind. Without firm willpower, normal people wouldn't bear to suppress it. Why suppress it? Cultivating was so hard and could only advance once every 3 to 5 years, so of course she had to complete her advancement in one go. Otherwise, who knew how long it would be before she could advance again? Moreover, a normal mystic cultivator's advancement process definitely wouldn't be as fierce as the child's. And 2 major stages in a row. Advancing 2 minor stages in a row was already pretty good, okay? Therefore she didn't need to suppress her advancement. The child retracted her hands and stood up. Just as she opened the cultivation room's tightly shut door, she heard a scream from nearby. "Oh no, junior sister Qinghu fainted. Hurry and give junior sister some water." The child pattered over and saw several senior sisters carrying a girl in cyan clothes to a stone chair at the side to sit down. Although the girl in cyan clothes woke up, her complexion and lips were a bit pale. Was a level 3 mystic cultivator's body this week? Why does this girl look like she's on the verge of collapse? The toughness of a level 3 mystic cultivator's body was completely comparable to that of a level 3 body cultivator. It shouldn't be this weak. The little fellow took small steps and squeezed in front of the senior sisters. The senior sisters of the second peak all looked at the child and could not help but be stunned. You must be little junior sister. You've come out." The senior martial sister who spoke just happened to see Master carrying this little junior martial sister back that day, so she recognized Arbor. When the others heard what she said, they finally understood. It turned out that the little junior sister who had always closed the door to her cultivation room and had drawn all the profound energy of the entire sect to her side for the past 3 days was this person in front of her. Little junior sister was squatting in front of Su Qinghu, holding her wrist and looking at her with a strange expression. Su Qinghu smiled at her and said weakly, "Junior sister, what's wrong? You fainted from hunger." Arbor couldn't believe it himself when he said this. A dignified level 3 mystic cultivator actually fainted from hunger. This was truly an oddity. Chapter 283. Why did you faint from hunger? Our dear Xiao Mu couldn't believe it. The other senior sisters looked at each other in dismay. What other reason could there be for fainting from hunger? Of course it was because she was hungry. Thinking about how they had already eaten a bowl of red bean porridge 4 days ago, they felt extremely bitter. Junior sister Qinghu wasn't the only one who fainted from hunger. They also felt like they were about to faint. Are you very hungry? The child looked at Su Qinghu curiously. Miss Su smiled shyly at her question. I'm fine, little junior sister. What do you mean you're fine? An 11 or 12-year-old little girl dressed in green jumped out from the side. Her round face was filled with anger as she glared at the child and said, Why did you faint from hunger? Ask yourself. What did Bao Bao do? The child was dumbfounded. Junior sister Fong. Su Qinghu looked at Fong Su disapprovingly, then smiled gently at the child. It's nothing, little junior sister. Your senior sister Fong is just this impatient, don't take offense. Also, Master said to find her after you come out of seclusion. Senior sister, you're the only one with a good temper. Fong Su was like a little cannon. She aimed her cannon at darling Qiao and bombarded her. If it weren't for you occupying the cultivation room for 3 days for no reason and transferring all the mystic energy in the sect to yourself, refusing to share even a single piece of the pie with others, would Qinghu have fainted? Would senior sister Qinghu faint from hunger? Humph! Fong Su shouted angrily, it's all your fault. If senior sister Qinghu had entered seclusion cultivation early in the morning and absorbed mystic energy to replenish her body's energy, would anything have happened to her today? Not only senior sister Qinghu, several other senior sisters also fainted because of you. The situation of the other peaks probably isn't any better. Fong Su fired a barrage of words at the child. However, the child was bewildered. She looked at the little cannon senior sisters in confusion. You guys? Just rely on absorbing mystic energy to eat? That's not very appropriate. Fong Su was truly angered by the child. Her mouth opened and closed as she said angrily, so what if it's not appropriate? Then what if you eat 1 meal every 5 days? What else can you do if you don't seize the time to cultivate? If you don't cultivate, you get even hungrier. Cultivating into a selfless state actually blocked all the negative side effects of the body. But after you're done cultivating, you'll be even hungrier. The child looked at the senior sisters in front of him speechlessly. Why did he feel that they were like a group of retards? Cultivating profound energy could allow one to enter a state of selflessness, and then block off the body's sense of hunger. But in reality, the body's sense of hunger did not disappear. It would only become hungrier as time went on, okay? Ahem. Su Qinghu didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he saw the way the kid was looking at an idiot. Well, junior sister, why don't you go to Master's place first? Here, take it. The child took out a small brown cornbread from the small bag hanging on his waist and handed it directly to Su Qinghu. Before she left, her mother had prepared a lot of food for her. These small cornbread were personally made by her mother. She used corn powder and added minced meat stuffing inside, so it smelled fragrant. It took a lot of effort to do this, and he even asked second uncle to help. Just drying the corn and grinding it into powder with a stone grinder took second uncle a lot of effort. The little fellow stored a lot of minced meat cornbread in her storage talisman. There weren't many in this bag, but because it was more convenient to take them out, she kept them in there. The moment the cornbread was handed to Su Qinghu, many pairs of eyes landed on that minced meat cornbread. Little cannon Fong Su even subconsciously swallowed her saliva, her eyes staring fixedly at that cornbread. Chapter 284. Do you guys have to be so exaggerated? Just a little cornbread is enough to make you guys drool. Xiao Mu dug around in her pocket and took out several pieces of rui cakes that had been squashed flat. These were sent over by the city lord's estate, so she casually grabbed a few pieces and put them in her pocket. However, from the looks of it now, they really did not look good. They had been squashed very ugly. If you don't mind them being ugly, you can have them. The little fellow handed over the rui cakes to senior sister Little Cannon. Little Cannon's face flushed red, and she swallowed several mouthfuls of saliva before angrily saying, "Take them back and eat them yourself. I won't bully you and steal your food." Arbor expressionlessly pulled her hands over and placed the cakes in her hands. "Take them and eat them. I still have a lot here." I really have to hand it to you guys. You're all mystic cultivators above level 3, so why are you like idiots starving yourself to this extent? Darling Chow's section break. Holy Water Sect's first peak. Unlike the sect master's simple bamboo forest, First Peak had continuous houses in picturesque disorder, and the winding paths of pavilions and terraces were deep and serene. When Murong Sun was constructing First Peak, she spent time and effort finding several famous craftsmen and tormented them for a long time. The beauty was in a bad mood despite the beautiful scenery before her. Murong Sun had been depressed for several days. If she had known earlier, she would have left someone behind and directly brought her little disciple here. It had been so many days and the appointed date had long passed, but her little disciple was nowhere to be seen. Master! Su Shanshan's aloof voice rang outside the pavilion. Murong Sun weakly responded and lightly jumped down from the pavilion, landing in front of Su Shanshan. What is it? The great king of Qiu sent 5 carts of food, cloth and other supplies. They're waiting outside the mountain gate right now. Su Shanshan's words caused Murong Sun to frown. The great king of Qiu? What do they want to do? Let's go take a look. When Murong Sun led Su Shanshan and the other disciples to the mountain gate, the sect master and junior sister Lu from Third Peak were already there. The sect master chuckled as he sent someone to accept the gift from the great king of Qiu. He kept saying, "How could I accept this? The great king of Qiu must have spent a lot of money." Murong Sun's lips twitched, and she walked up to stop the disciples who were transporting the goods. She looked up at the Qiu soldier captain who was escorting the goods. What request do you have for our holy water sect to help you deliver so many goods? The sect master's amiable face immediately changed. What? You want our sect to do something for the purpose of sending supplies? Lu Yun. Master, don't say anything. Your disciple feels a headache when you speak. Murong Sun exasperatedly glanced at the sect master. She raised her hand and pulled the small ringleader to her face. She quietly ordered, "Hurry and speak. What is your objective?" The Qiu Kingdom's minor leader shuddered and wailed as he knelt on the ground with a plop. This lowly one is under the orders of the great king to deliver an apology gift to Miss Qiu of the Holy Water Sect's First Peak. This lowly subordinate wants to personally hand it over to Miss Qiu. Isn't that clear enough? It's Miss Qiu of the Holy Water Sect's First Peak. Everyone present looked at each other, especially the sect master. She curiously looked at her eldest disciple. Asun, is there a Miss Qiu on your First Peak? She was so impressive that she could make the old king of Qiu send so many apology gifts. Speaking of which, why was it an apology gift? Murong Sun's expression changed again and again. She felt like something in her head was gradually becoming clearer. Su Shanshan looked at the Qiu Kingdom's minor leader in shock. What do you mean? My little junior sister Qiu came? She's in our sect right now? Chapter 285. It should be. Someone told us to deliver it to Miss Qiu. The soldier captain grew more and more afraid. Why did he feel gusts of cold wind blowing past him? Murong Sun's expression instantly turned unsightly. Her memories started to flow together. Starting from the light that shot into the sky during the test that night, Second Peak's junior sister Yang brought back a disciple with exceptional aptitude. Her disciple entered closed-door cultivation for 3 days and absorbed all of the mystic energy in the sect. Now, someone suddenly sent an apology gift to Miss Qiu of Holy Water Sect's First Peak. Could there be a second meaning to this? Her little disciple came early in the morning. How was she Second Peak's disciple? She was clearly Murong Sun's last disciple. Shit, Second Peak's Yang Shirong actually dared to snatch Murong Sun's precious disciple back. Murong Sun felt like she might explode on the spot. What kind of lousy matter was this? Aunt Master Murong. The disciples called out, only to see Murong Sun flying into the air with a whoosh with a dark expression, swiftly flying towards Second Peak. Su Shanshan was startled before hastily following her master. When the sect master saw this, she abruptly slapped her thigh. Shit! Did you see Asun's expression just now? Oh my, something seems to have happened. Let's hurry over and take a look. The sect master turned around after saying that, but her third disciple was nowhere to be seen. Her mouth twitched as she turned her head back, only to see her third disciple following closely behind Murong Sun and running far away. Evil disciple. The sect master angrily scolded and turned to the snickering disciples. Children, you're responsible for transporting the supplies back to the sect. Leave them there first and wait for your little junior sister to receive them. After saying that, she quickly chased after Murong-sun and waved the fan in her hand back and forth. She hastily shouted, "Us-sun, let's talk nicely. We can't be impulsive." It would be even better if the sect master could rein in her amused expression. On the other side, Arbor was watching Su Qinghu eat the cornbread before nodding and asking, "How do I get to first peak from here?" That day was a bit funny. Aunt Master Yang caught her and ran back, but she immediately went into closed-door cultivation afterward and did not even have a chance to explain. "Why are we going to first peak?" Little Pao felt her empty stomach felt a bit better after chewing on a piece of pastry. "We can only fly to first peak." She had to be at least a level 7 mystic cultivator before she could successfully cross it. As for the other disciples, we had to rely on big cranes to go up and down the snowy peaks. If he wanted to visit another peak, he had to report to the chief disciple of his peak. It was not every day that he could visit another peak. Big crane basically comes once every 5 days. It came yesterday. It's still like this. Wouldn't that mean that she wouldn't be able to go to the first peak for a few days? Xiaomu furrowed her brows, conflicted. She had originally planned to leave quietly, but now it seemed that she still had to find Marshal Uncle Yang to clarify this matter. Just as he was speaking, Yang Shirong's cheerful voice sounded, "Aya, I heard that my little disciple has come out of seclusion. Quick, come over and let Master take a look." "Yang Shirong, shut up. Who is your little disciple?" A red figure moved like a bolt of lightning, arriving at the child's side before Yang Shirong and picking her up. The child turned her stoic face, and her eyes lit up as she said, "Master." Murong-sun grumpily flicked her forehead. "Silly." Su Shanshan did not understand the situation and speechlessly chuckled as she looked at the child. "Little junior sister, you're truly naughty. Master was waiting for you in first peak, but you didn't show up. Who would have thought that you would sneak back to the sect and come to Marshal Uncle Yang's second peak?" Yang Shirong felt something was off the more she heard this. She anxiously ran over and angrily yelled, "Murong-sun, what are you doing? Let go of my disciple." "Your disciple?" Murong-sun turned around with the child in her arms and dangerously narrowed her eyes. Chapter 286. "You're saying, this is your disciple?" Murong-sun looked at Yang Shirong, who was about to charge forward with her sleeves rolled up, and her voice was light as she enunciated each word with a sardonic smile. Oh shit, why did she feel like eldest senior sister wanted to beat her to death? Peak Master Yang, who had been afraid of this eldest senior sister since she was young, immediately cowered. However, her cowardice did not last for more than 2 seconds. When she thought about how her exceptionally talented little disciple was about to be snatched away, she immediately came back to life and leaped 3 feet into the air. "That's right. This is my disciple. Although you are my eldest senior sister, you still can't do something like snatching someone else's disciple, right? The obedient disciple that I personally picked in front of the mountain gate 3 days ago. Everyone saw it with their own eyes, Humph. Hurry and let go of her. Why are you hugging her? Was her disciple that easy to hug?" As soon as Yang Shirong finished speaking, she inexplicably felt a chilly sensation slide past her neck. When she looked up again, shit, Murong-sun had soundlessly arrived in front of her. She was so close yet she was still grinning. Shit. Peak Master Yang involuntarily took a step back and crossed her arms in front of her, assuming a defensive posture. She roared, "What are you doing?" The second Peak's disciples all covered their eyes. Their idiot master was clearly cowering, but she still forced herself to hold on. When facing eldest senior master, she freaking cracked her voice. "Junior sister Yang, we haven't sparred in a long time, right?" Murong-sun chuckled. Yang Shirong felt like a bucket of cold water was poured over her from head to toe. "I'll spar with your sister." Peak Master Yang's pretty face turned green, and she hastily took 2 steps back. "Senior sister, I'm telling you. Don't hit your second junior sister. It's between senior and junior sisters, so let's talk things out." The sect master's voice immediately cut in. She waved her fan and sat down on a stone stool that allowed her to watch from a close distance as she spoke with a chuckle. Lu Yun pursed her lips. If Master didn't act like a spectator, her acting would be more convincing. Do you want tea, Master? Lu Yun humphed. Oh, give me some. The sect master accepted the tea from the second peak's disciple and drank it as she watched. Come, my disciple, wait for me here. Your second aunt, Master. She's going to go overboard if she's not beaten for 3 days. Murong Sun placed the child on the ground and grabbed the dumbstruck young Shirong, dragging her up to the roof with a whoosh. Sect master put down the teacup in his hand in shock, jumped up and shouted, Asuan! Be careful. The second peak's house was built not long ago. Rascal, why did you run to the back and fight? How was she going to enjoy it when he pulled it to the back? Lu Yun chuckled. She directly left her master and jumped onto the roof. Then she quickly jumped back down. She took out an umbrella from her inner world and opened it. The sect master couldn't wait to rush up to the roof to watch the show. However, instead, she was hit by the rolling waves of water, which drenched her whole body in an instant. The sect master was dumbfounded. She angrily roared, Asuan, are you trying to tear down the house? What a terrible disaster. Lu Yun held an umbrella and stood leisurely under the eaves. She stretched out her hand to cover her mouth and chuckled. What was this called? This was called watching a show without thinking too much, but in the end being struck by lightning. Oh wait, she was flooded. Amidst the rolling waves, young Shirong's figure was faintly discernible. She repeatedly exclaimed, Eldest senior sister, what are you doing? Damn! I just filled up all the ponds on the second peak 2 years ago. I didn't expect that you wouldn't even let go of the ice and snow on my second peak now. Stop it. My snow, it's about to melt away. How can this still be called a snow peak? Ow ow ow. Chapter 287. Everyone looked up in unison and saw the fluttering snowflakes in the sky instantly transform into a curtain of rain that rustled down with the people. The scenery was even more beautiful. Peak Master Murong's control over the water spirit was simply breathtaking. The woman who walked over in the drizzle was dressed in plain clothes. Her eyes were as resplendent as pearls, and she had a wicked smile on her lips. Xiao Mu looked at her master in bewilderment and silently looked down to check her fingers. As Murong Sun floated to the ground, half of Second Peak's main hall's roof collapsed, and the tiles clattered to the ground. That unlucky second Antmaster had to find someone to fix the roof. Suddenly, an old lady waving a large fan hopped in front of her. She giggled with a benevolent expression. Io, this must be the grand disciple of my family that even the old king of Cho Kingdom is rushing over to present as an apology gift. I'm your master's master. What apology gift from the old king of Cho Kingdom? The child had no idea what the sect master was talking about. Before the elderly lady could finish speaking, Murong Sun flashed to her disciple's side and scooped up the child's tiny body. Let's go, disciple. Second peak isn't fun at all. Let's return to first peak. The sect master slapped her fan and glared helplessly. Wicked disciple. Master hasn't finished chatting with my grand disciple yet. Sect master, what kind of greeting gift are you preparing for your grand disciple? Look at your grand disciple. She's a darling who advanced to phenomenal success level 6 in one go. You can't give a normal greeting gift, right? Murong Sun glanced at the sect master from the corner of her eyes. Hand over Maple Pavilion's key. The sect master was shocked. Only now did she realize that the child in front of her was a phenomenal success level 6 mystic cultivator. The sect master immediately wanted to pounce over and grab the child for a closer look, but she was blocked by Murong Sun, who was eager to protect her disciple. What? Let me see. What a wicked disciple. She forgot about her master after having a disciple. What's wrong with master taking a look? Could a look cause your disciple to lose a piece of flesh? What are you looking at? Just looking is enough. Murong Sun took a step back with the child in her arms and extended a hand to the sect master. Give me the key. Tomorrow, I'll bring your grand disciple inside to pick out an item as a greeting gift from you. Elderly lady pouted and glared at Murong Sun. Then what about you? What did you give your disciple as a meeting gift? Haha, that's right. Then let's just pick another piece and treat it as my greeting gift to my disciple. Murong Sun nodded logically and looked at the sect master elderly madam with a grin. What? At this moment, the old lady had the urge to slap herself in the face. Wouldn't it be fine if she didn't mention that? Bastard, unfilial disciple. All day long, he only knew how to anger her and refused to take over the position of sect master, letting her take off her burdens and enjoy her life. Unfilial, unfilial, unfilial. Little junior sister, you're amazing. Su Shanshan's eyes seemed to be shining, and a smile appeared on her aloof face. You broke through to phenomenal success as a level 6 mystic cultivator at such a young age. Truly no one can compare to you. Arbor blinked and said to Su Shanshan, eldest senior sister, I'll give you and second senior sister a gift when we return. Murong Sun raised her eyebrows. Only your eldest senior sister and second senior sister have gifts? Master doesn't have any? The little stoic looked at her master seriously. This thing is useless to master. Giving it to her is also a waste. Murong Sun burst into laughter. Oh my, her little disciple's expression was seriously extremely serious when she said waste. Chapter 288. Grand Disciple, you broke through to phenomenal success level 6 mystic cultivator at such a young age. You are truly extraordinary. With the sect master's keen eyesight, she could tell with a glance that Arbor could continue advancing and directly break through to level 7 mystic cultivator realm with her current situation. However, the child did not do so, which meant that although she was young, her wisdom was outstanding, and her willpower was also incomparable to normal people. Faint admiration flashed through the sect master's eyes. She nodded and took out a round jade bracelet from her waist. A verdant pine and cypress tree was carved into it. Murong Sun accepted it without reservation and waved her fair wrist at the sect master. She said with a smile, thank you, sect master. Disciples, let's go home. Wicked disciple. The sect master angrily cursed again and watched Murong Sun and her disciples leave. Although she was cursing, her eyes were full of smiles. Eldest senior sister, come out. A figure abruptly darted out from the ruins of the ruined eaves. She was covered in dust, and her hair was disheveled and askew. The sect master's lips involuntarily twitched when she saw her second disciple's wretched appearance. Lu Yun held a silk flower umbrella and covered her thin lips with her hand as she chuckled. Second senior sister, are you blind? Didn't you see that eldest senior sister brought her youngest disciple back to first peak? I already said that people shouldn't be too smug or else they'll drown. Yang Shirong darted to the sect master with a whoosh. All the disciples silently counted in their minds. 1, 2, 3. Yang Shirong pounced over the moment she said 3. Master, eldest senior sister is bullying me. Yang Shirong hugged the sect master's thigh and kept tugging at the sect master's trousers. She wailed, Master, you must uphold justice for me, your disciple. Master, master, master. Don't pull, don't pull, don't pull. Don't pull, let go, let go. Let go. Arong, I order you to stand. Right. Let go. Hand. The sect master's face instantly turned green. She tugged at the waist of her trousers to prevent her idiotic disciple from pulling them down. The disciples of the second peak lowered their heads, their shoulders trembling slightly. Lu Yun covered her mouth and laughed uncontrollably. Master, eldest senior sister robbed my disciple. You must uphold justice for your disciple. How could she do such a wicked thing? My disciple is a level 4 mystic cultivator at such a young age. The sect master was dumbfounded, and then she replied woodenly, what level 4 mystic cultivator? My precious grand disciple is now a level 6 mystic cultivator at phenomenal success and can advance to level 7 at any time. Haha, this wasn't bragging. If you could find a 7-year-old quasi-level 7 mystic cultivator in all of the 3 sects and 5 factions in the entire Seikong planet, then you were awesome. The disciples of the second peak, including Lu Yun, could not help but twitch their lips. Sect master, you talk too much. You will soon know the consequences of talking too much. Yang Shirong's hand, which was tugging on sect master's trousers, froze for a few seconds. Then she let out an earth-shattering roar. Master! You have to uphold justice for your disciple. My little disciple, who's a phenomenal success level 6 mystic cultivator, was tricked away by eldest senior sister. You have to help me get her back. That's my treasure, my life. Master, master. Rip. Following the sound of the sect master's trousers being ripped off, Yang Shirong's shouting came to an abrupt end. The sect master's complexion instantly turned the color of dirt, and she rapped her head heavily on her second disciple's forehead. Fuck. Freaking hell. How many times have you ripped master's trousers this year? Chapter 289. Murong Sun naturally did not care about the chaos on second peak. When she carried her youngest disciple back to first peak, she was immediately surrounded by all the disciples on first peak. Everyone wanted to see what their little junior sister looked like after Master rushed to second peak and forcibly snatched her back. Apparently, she was Master's last personal disciple. Master had the fewest personal disciples among the 3 peak masters. Previously there were only 3, so of course including this little junior sister there were 4. Everyone was quite curious and could not conceal the envy in their eyes. However, although they were a bit envious, their eyes were surprisingly clear and did not contain any jealousy. They were all well aware that compared to the outer sect disciples of the other 2 sects, their treatment was considered good. A portion of them had mediocre aptitudes, but in Holy Water sect's first peak, no matter how mediocre their aptitudes were, they received the same amount of cultivation resources as everyone else, so Master did not favor one over the other. Master treated them very well, so even though their days were very torturous, none of them had the thought of leaving Holy Water sect. Holy Water sect's first peak had the fewest disciples, only 153 people. The oldest disciple was 21 years old. Her name was Yu Qian. Although her aptitude was not good, she was very capable. Usually she was highly valued by the master. Some of the secular affairs on the first peak were basically handled by this senior sister Yu. The youngest was naturally our dear Qiao Mu. Qiao Mu, who was surrounded by a group of people, also curiously looked back at them. These were the senior sisters that she had to get along well with in the next few years. Murong Sun carried Qiao Mu and said a few words to everyone. She did not need to instruct them too much. She was well aware of these disciples' personalities and conduct, so they definitely would not bully her youngest disciple. Alright, your little junior sister just arrived at first peak and still has many things to do. There will be plenty of time to chat with her in the future, so let's disperse for now, Murong Sun said dryly and was about to leave with Qiao Mu. Yu Qian hastily walked out of the crowd and bowed to Murong Sun. She respectfully said, Master, this disciple has something to report. Murong Sun paused and turned to look at Yu Qian. She asked kindly, what is it? Yu Qian lowered her head and said with a flushed face, sorry master, I didn't take good care of my junior sisters. 2 more junior sisters fainted today. Murong Sun. Sect leader, your sister, come out. She really wanted to beat her up to vent her anger. What do you mean by changing the 3-day meal to 5-day meal? Look at your grand disciples, they're fainting from hunger so easily. Doesn't your conscience hurt? They all fainted from hunger? Little child looked at the master and disciples as if she was looking at a weirdo. That look in his eyes was simply insane. Murong Sun suddenly had a feeling that her youngest disciple was looking at her like she was looking at an idiot. It made her feel so stifled that Yu Qian hurriedly raised her head and said, little junior sister, don't worry. Even if senior sisters eat less in the future, we won't starve you. Don't ever leave the sect. Master loves you very much. If you run away, Master will be sad. She was actually speechless. The child. Thank you. If you go hungry for one more meal, you will die. For the sake of this baby, are you going to endure the pain and change it to 1 meal every 10 days? You bunch of idiots, don't you know how to go out and pick up some missions? How about it? You're a group of level 3 and above mystic cultivators. Oh no, there are many level 5, level 6, and even level 7 mystic cultivators among you. It shouldn't be difficult for you to take on a few missions to support your families, right? Chapter 290. Master, what did Sect Master say about an apology gift? Arbor turned his head to look at Murong Sun. Murong Sun instantly understood. Let's go and take a look with me. That old king of the Cho kingdom sent people here to give you 5 carts of items as an apology gift. As he spoke, his voice paused and he lowered his head to look at his disciple. Tell me what happened? Why did he suddenly send an apology gift? He must have offended her disciple. Murong Sun wanted to hear the situation. On the way here, I had a small conflict with the Cho Kingdom's guards in Ponytown. The child expressionlessly replied before furrowing her brows. Why would the great king of the Cho Kingdom give her an apology gift? Could it be? The child thought of something and her eyes brightened. Back then, she was carried away by that swindler Qingwan. So this apology gift must have been obtained by Ao. This subordinate was pretty good. Knowing the situation, he tactfully grasped his little master's temperament. She loved to receive an apology gift the most. Small conflict? Murong-sun nodded with a smile. How could she know that the small conflict the child mentioned was the small conflict that alarmed the crown prince of the Mo Kingdom and scared the shit out of the Cho Kingdom's great king? He wanted nothing more than to kneel and beg for mercy. Murong-sun carried the child away from first peak and earnestly said to the child, "My disciple, you did well. Don't let others bully you. Remember, if you can't beat them, come find me. I'll definitely beat them until they're looking for their teeth on the ground. If you don't tell me when you're bullied, I'll beat you until you're looking for your teeth on the ground, understand? Arbert, I've always endured if I can't beat them and waited for them to counterattack. I won't find an adult to stand up for me." Murong-sun lightly rapped her head and followed up with a question. "Do you understand?" "Okay," the little stoic helplessly replied. "Good girl." Murong-sun chuckled and carried her as fast as lightning. The holy water sect's storehouse was on another snowy peak. In fact, the depths of the Great Snow Mountain were somewhat mysterious. It was clearly a large stretch of mountain range, but it seemed as if someone had dug out a large hole in the middle, wrapping the 5 snowy peaks in the middle of the mountain range. These 5 snowy peaks were all independent of each other, which was why Little Pao had said that disciples below level 7 could only rely on the big cranes to travel. Other than the main peak and the third peak, the sky peak they went to was actually a warehouse located in the center of the 5 peaks. The maple pavilion that his master had mentioned was also on this snowy peak. "Little fellow, after we accept your apology gift, we'll go to Maple Pavilion to help you find a decent mystic technique manual." Murong-sun's figure flashed, and she landed on Sky Peak with her disciple. "This is a greeting gift from your grandmaster grandmother. It would be a waste not to accept it. Remember to pick the best one when the time comes. A person chooses a profound skill, and a profound skill will also choose a person. I'll tell you the details later. Go and accept your apology gift first." The little guy's eyes lit up. Mystical skill. Would she be able to obtain a profound skill manual? Mystical skill manuals were not those normal profound skill manuals circulating on the market. They were items that couldn't be bought with money. When the Holy Water Sect's warehouse manager led the master and disciple to a large pile of supplies, they couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. The items that the old king of the Cho Kingdom purchased were truly quite extravagant. "Master, I'll take half. Leave the other half for the sect. In the future, provide at least 2 meals a day. Let's think of a solution together." The little stoic turned around and solemnly looked at Murong-sun. It was already late, so they went to bed. They would return to normal tomorrow. Chapter 291. Before Murong-sun could speak, Auntie pounced over and planned to hug the child and kiss her fiercely. "Child, the sect is truly too grateful to you. If you need anything in the future, just tell Grandma. Grandma will definitely help you." Murong-sun blocked Auntie Yi's actions. "Enough, enough, enough. Go divide the things and create a small storeroom. Disciple, this is your Grandma Yi. If you lack anything in the future, just ask Grandma Yi. Auntie Yi. Sun is going to spoil her disciple to the heavens." Auntie Yi was over 50 years old and was the sect master's personal attendant. She had managed Sky Peak for several decades, so she was naturally loyal and devoted to the entire sect. Recently, she had been worrying about the sect's food resources, so when she heard the child donate 2.5 carts of supplies, it was truly a blessing from the heavens. She did not know how to express her joy. Auntie Yi quickly gathered several subordinates to help divide half of the supplies in the storeroom and move the rest to another small storeroom. She turned to Murong-sun with a chuckle and said, "You master and disciple can call a few more people over to move. Big crane is in the back garden, so help yourself. I'm going to organize and register the supplies now, so I won't entertain you too." After Auntie Yi left, only Murong-sun and Xiao Mu were left in the storeroom. Murong Sun took out a sect messenger talisman and said, Master will have your eldest senior sister and the others come over and help move the things back to your court. Xiao Mu's inner world naturally could not contain so many supplies. This was the common thought of all normal people. No need, Master. Expressionlessly, the child stretched out his hand and took out 20 blank storage talismans. He roughly divided the batch of supplies and put the food, cloth, utensils, and so on into the talismans. In less than 30 minutes he was done quickly. As soon as Xiao Mu turned around, she was met with Murong Sun's dumbfounded face. Xiao Mu thought for a moment and took out 20 storage talismans from her pocket. She pattered to Murong Sun and handed a stack of talismans to her. She magnanimously said, Gifts for eldest senior sister and second senior sister are useless to Master, so give this to Master. Take it, I still have a lot. Disregarding the gifted and used storage talismans, she still had 100 empty blue storage talismans and 1 purple storage talisman. Murong Sun. What kind of rich disciple was this? Disciple, you are a talisman master. With so many storage talismans in hand, no one would believe that he was not a talisman master. Who was Murong Sun? She only needed to think for a moment to figure it out. The child didn't hide anything and nodded. Yes, Master. I'm a talisman master. Murong Sun swayed and hugged her little disciple in her arms. She lovingly patted her little head and said with a smile, Aya, you truly are a surprising child. I like your gift very much. The master and disciple left the storehouse and headed for Maple Pavilion. The 2 storehouse stewards who were guarding the door looked at each other, thinking that the master and disciple had gone back to call for someone. After waiting for a long time and not seeing anyone return, they inexplicably entered the storehouse to take a look and found that everything was gone. They couldn't help but be dumbfounded. By this time, the master and disciple had arrived at the entrance of the Maple Pavilion. From the outside, this looked like a simple small pavilion without any fancy decorations. There wasn't even a single guard around it. Murong Sun said, There are 4 talisman matrices set up around Maple Pavilion. The first layer is an illusory matrix, the second layer is a trapping matrix, the third layer is a killing matrix, and the fourth layer is a killing matrix. If you try to force your way in without knowing the situation, you definitely won't be able to break in. Chapter 292. The child's eyes brightened. Talisman matrix. She had naturally heard of talisman matrices before, but there were very few talisman practitioners on Seikong planet who knew how to set up talisman matrices. Many talisman matrices were passed down from 100 years ago. For example, according to her master, this talisman matrix on Sky Peak was set up by a powerful great talisman practitioner 300 years ago. The 4-layered talisman matrix used jade talismans to inscribe runes, so its power was limitless. Moreover, the talisman matrix had been used 5 times in the past 300 years, but the talisman energy still hadn't been completely exhausted. It could be seen how profound the talisman energy that great talisman practitioner injected back then was. The child stretched out her hands and looked down, her heart filled with endless longing. If only the golden talisman jade tome could teach me how to inscribe talisman matrices. She could first set up a mystic energy gathering talisman matrix for her senior sisters in the sect, and gather all the mystic energy around the sect. Cultivating inside the mystic energy gathering talisman matrix would definitely be more than twice as effective as cultivating normally. While she was lost in her thoughts, she saw Murong Sun toss out the jade bracelet engraved with a green pine tree. The instant the jade bracelet rose into the air, an oval-shaped transparent barrier visible to the naked eye formed outside the pavilion. Light flickered faintly, and the several hundred gathered jade talismans abruptly dispersed. The child curiously looked up and saw the jade bracelet embedded in the front of the barrier. It turned out that this was the key to opening Maple Pavilion. That jade bracelet just happened to fit into the gap in the barrier, and the entire barrier was completed. The child immediately understood that this jade bracelet must also be engraved with a secret rune inscription. It was the key to closing the entire talisman matrix. The child's eyes glowed, and she admired this great talisman practitioner even more. What an amazing person! Murong Sun smiled faintly. This great talisman practitioner is your grandmaster grandmother's good friend. He's the previous patriarch of the talisman patrician family, Mu Chaoyang. Currently, He's been traveling outside for who knows how many years, and the entire talisman patrician family has become increasingly deformed. Murong-sun shook her head and patted the child's head. Don't say too much about these matters. They don't have much to do with us. Now, you have to listen carefully to what Master is saying. You have to enter Maple Pavilion alone in a moment. Master can't accompany you inside. Maple Pavilion might look like an ordinary 2-story pavilion from the outside, but it actually has 7 levels. In fact, it had 7 floors and each floor had different things. After you go in, don't worry about anything else. Just go upstairs. Go up as many floors as you can. The higher you go, the better. The child listened carefully and nodded his little head frequently. Until you encounter the resistance of the floor that prevents you from going up, don't try to force your way through. Stop immediately. In the center of this floor, there's a crystal platform. Inject your profound energy into it. From the 4th floor onwards, there are not only profound skills, but also profound weapons and even spirit weapons and spirit skills. Treasures choose people and people choose treasures. When you choose, you have to rely on your own heart. Naturally, the thicker the profound energy covering a spiritual item, the better it was. Understand? The child nodded. Murong-sun knew that she was meticulous and extraordinarily intelligent, so she did not say anything else. She chuckled lightly and said, "Then go in now. Remember, the talisman matrix will transport you out once 4 hours are up. That's why you have to hurry." Got it, Master. The child was eager to try. Not only did she want to go in and pick a treasure, she also wanted to go in and observe this talisman formation. Even though she would definitely not be able to figure out the profundity of the talisman formation, at least she would be able to come into close contact with it. Chapter 293. The child walked briskly and safely entered the array. She closed her eyes to feel the subtleties of the array before quickly entering the Maple Pavilion. The first floor of the Maple Pavilion. The child looked left and right and discovered that other than the 4 walls, there was nothing else inside. Xiaomu pondered over her master's words and ran forward with small steps. On the left side of this empty room was a spiral staircase. The child climbed up the stairs in one breath and made several turns. She didn't encounter any obstructions and her mystic energy flowed freely. She didn't feel uncomfortable at all. So strange. The child stopped with a palpitating heart and looked around for a while. She even ran to the center of the room on this floor, wanting to sense the crystal platform that her master had mentioned. In the end, there was no reaction. She could only continue climbing up the stairs. She felt as if she had climbed more than 1,000 floors. She couldn't have any other thoughts and couldn't blame her master for tricking her. But why didn't you say earlier that there were hundreds of stairs on each floor? From the outside it looked like an ordinary 2-story pavilion, but in reality, how tall was it? Felt as if he was climbing a tower that was as tall as the sky. She kept climbing without limit and felt like there was no end. The child had been counting the time in her heart ever since she entered. 2 hours should have passed by now. However, the path looked endless and there was no reaction from the center of the room. It couldn't be that after 4 hours he didn't get anything and was directly teleported out, right? Just thinking about it made her angry. The child, who had originally felt a little tired and wanted to rest to catch her breath, hurriedly climbed up the stairs again when she realized that there might not be enough time. The space in this pavilion must have been modified by that powerful talisman master. Under the influence of the array, the space in the entire pavilion was different from the outside world. Xiaomu wiped away her sweat and raised her head to look at the endless spiral staircase. She couldn't see the end of it, and her heart turned cold. Xiaomu gritted her teeth in a huff and took out a small bottle of water from her pocket, drinking 2 mouthfuls. He immediately slapped 2 speed talismans on himself, stacking them together to increase his speed. Within 20 minutes, his speed had increased by 3 times. The little fellow rushed up like a shooting star until the 2 speed talismans were completely exhausted and fell from her body. Xiaomu's head crashed into a sturdy wall. Her head came into intimate contact with the thick wall, and with a bang, her little head almost fainted from the impact. Oh my God, her smooth little forehead is probably bruised from knocking on the ground. There was nothing in front of him, but he had indeed been blocked by an invisible wall. Xiaomu rubbed the pain on her forehead and reflexively took 2 more steps up. Suddenly, a vast and mighty pressure directly slapped her down the steps. Caught off guard, the child rolled down and landed on the platform. The small group of people fell quickly, but they got up even faster. Rubbing her small waist, the little fellow jumped up from the ground. She looked back and saw a crystal platform rising from the ground in the middle of the house. The child hurriedly ran over and saw a black ball placed on the crystal platform. Other than that, there was nothing else in the room. He had to inject his profound energy into it. The child recalled Murong Sun's words and walked up the steps to the black ball. She slowly placed her small hand on the black ball. From the corner of her eye, she saw a number carved on the crystal platform. 6. Chapter 294. Could it be that she went up to the 6th floor? This thought flashed through Arbor's mind, but upon further thought, it was somewhat impossible. From what Master said, it seemed like being able to go up to the 4th floor was already considered pretty good. This pavilion's actual space had 7 floors. How could a little level 6 mystic cultivator like her reach the 6th floor in one go? How could those level 7 and level 8 senior sisters endure this? So, this number probably didn't represent the 6th floor. But why was this number engraved here? Arbor shook her head and temporarily cast aside some random thoughts before directly placing her hand on the round black ball. Soon, a faint radiance appeared on the surface of the round ball, and circled around the child's small palm. Arbor hurriedly injected mystic energy into the round black ball. Ever since the little fellow advanced to the phenomenal success stage of level 6 mystic cultivator, she had never used mystic energy. Now that she used it, she immediately felt that the concentration of mystic energy was much deeper than before. An endless stream of mystic energy was injected into the round black ball. 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, the child's small hand, which was placed on the round ball, was somewhat stiff. What kind of scam was this? Why did it seem like it couldn't absorb enough of her mystic energy, and endlessly let her inject mystic energy into it? After a mystic cultivator's mystic energy was completely depleted, it would be very troublesome and slow for them to recover on their own. Furthermore, it would have a negative effect on the body, and could even directly cause the mystic cultivator to faint. The child attempted to move her small hand away from the black ball, but it ended in failure. Her hand was sucked onto it and couldn't move at all. Sensing that the mystic energy in her body was decreasing at a terrifying speed, the child couldn't remain calm. She hurriedly mentally communicated with the sapling, and had it release the heart of paradise. Chirp chirp, give me some mid-grade magnetite. The more the better. Quickly. Chirp. The little white squirrel immediately hopped out of the paradise with a large mid-grade magnetite ore in its arms. It peeled off the outer shell at the fastest speed and placed it next to Arbor's hand. Arbor hurriedly placed her other hand on the mid-grade magnetite and took a deep breath, quickly absorbing the large amount of mystic energy in the magnetite. Chirp chirp, continue taking. The little white squirrel hastily hopped back and forth. Its speed was extremely fast and could carry 1 to 2 mid-grade magnetite of different sizes out at a time, until Arbor absorbed 17 or 18 mid-grade magnetite stones in one go. The black ball in front of her suddenly emitted a strong light that enveloped her entire body. At the same time, Arbor abruptly felt that the level 7 mystic cultivation barrier that he had been suppressing all this time had been broken through. She didn't have time to check her body's condition because a large wave of things appeared in front of her. She discovered that it was as if she was walking in a pitch-black void. Her small body floated in the air as profound skills that were wrapped in halos of light or profound armaments that were stored in iron boxes quickly floated past her eyes. His hands and feet would often touch some things that floated over, and those things would pause for a few seconds before quickly floating away. At this time, Murong Sun's slightly anxious voice was heard from outside the pavilion. Disciple, where did you run off to? There's not much time left. There's still 15 minutes left. You can take 2 things. Choose quickly. Arbor was extremely anxious. She floated in the air, so her mobility was somewhat restricted. Her large eyes were eagerly looking at the treasures that floated back and forth, trying to discern which one had the thicker mystic energy covering it. At this moment, her eyes suddenly lit up as she stared at a profound skill that was wrapped in a ball of congealed light, and was flying towards her at an extremely fast speed. It's you. Our dear Xiao Mu joyfully stretched out her small hand. Suddenly, a tattered book that looked like a hand-sewn thread-bound book flew out from the side. It looked like a broken book that was about to fall apart. With a smack, it hit her dumbfounded little face. Chapter 295. Following that, the little fellow looked on helplessly as the profound skill that she had her eyes on, which was wrapped in profound energy, brushed past her little palm with a whoosh and shot out. Woo! Her profound skill. Don't go. Her profound skill. Arbor waved her little hand and directly swept that lousy book away. While her body was upside down and her head was facing downwards, she used all her might to slide her 4 limbs as she anxiously chased after that profound skill. However, in the next second, with a crisp paw sound, that damned lousy book once again flew over and rashly smacked onto her head. The little fellow's entire face turned green. What the hell was this lousy book doing? The other profound skills were all beautifully packaged, wrapped in profound energy as they wandered around in this space. Just looking at them was extremely pleasing to the eye. What about it? It didn't have the looks, it didn't have the profound energy, it was so tattered that it looked like it was about to fall apart. Once, twice, fuck, it smacked onto her head for the 3rd time. Scram! Seeing that the lousy book was about to smack her face again, our dear Xiao Mu angrily punched over and directly sent that lousy book flying. Little thing, not to mention that it was ugly and dirty, the most important thing was that this lousy book didn't even have a trace of profound energy on it. How could she endure this? She came here to search for treasures, not to plunder trash. The little fellow kicked her little legs and glanced at the profound skill that had flown away without a trace. She bitterly wrinkled her little brows. Woo, her profound skill. The profound skill that she had set her eyes on. A piece of meat that was about to enter her mouth flew away just like that. Pa! Pa pa! Pa! Ayo, what the hell? She slanted her eyes to look back and couldn't help but faint from anger. The back of her head was smashed by that lousy book until she cried out in pain. The little fellow hugged her head and scurried away like a kangaroo. But there wasn't any force in this space, so where could she run to? She saw that lousy book chasing after her butt and smacking the back of her head fiercely. Do you have to freaking have such a vengeful heart? Why was it that after being smacked so many times, that lousy book that looked like it was about to shatter didn't fall apart? Although it didn't fall apart, the dust that came out of it almost choked her to death. How long has this lousy book been in the Maple Pavilion? Damn it, every time he patted it, there would be a pile of dust. No matter how he looked at it, it did not look like a treasure at all. Instead, it looked more like a piece of junk. Xiao Mu clutched her head in confusion and yelled, "Stop taking pictures, stop taking pictures. Take it. I'll just take it." Xiao Mu stretched out her 2 little fingers and pinched the corner of the book with a look of disgust. The damned book calmed down. Really was quite miraculous. Xiao Mu tore a piece of clothing and wrapped the tattered book in it. She even wrapped it 2 more times to prevent it from being exposed. Then, she solemnly put it into her bosom. It was not that she cherished it so much that she wanted to wrap it with the corner of her clothes. It was because it was too dirty. Moreover, it didn't smell much from afar. But it smelled a little stinky up close. Xiao Mu really wanted to cry now. She didn't even know which cesspit this lousy book was fished up from. Grandmaster Grandma was too deceitful. Why did she put this lousy book on this floor? If she had known, she would have gone to the 3rd floor or even the 2nd floor to look for treasures. It would have been better than this floor. She finally had the chance to go to the treasure pavilion to look for an excellent mystic technique, but she was actually deceived like this. The more Xiao Mu thought about it, the more her heart ached. She moved her limbs and looked around, thinking that it was fortunate that she could only take one. There wasn't much time left. She just had to hurry and find a more reliable mystic technique manual. Chapter 296. She saw it. The mystic technique book she took a fancy to earlier. The little fellow strove to move her limbs and strenuously chased after the mystic technique book covered in dense mystic energy. Just as her hands were about to hug the mystic technique book, Arbor's face finally revealed a bit of anticipation. Suddenly, a bone-chilling rectangular iron box fell from the sky and landed heavily in her outstretched hands. The weight of the unknown object caused her slender arms to sink a few inches. Our dear Qiao Mu's anticipation instantly froze on her face, and her stoic face was taut to the extreme. Oh heavens, what the heck was this? This cool iron box did not have any openings at all, and did not look like a box for storing mystic techniques at all. It was like a rectangular lump of iron that had been completely molded together. There was not a single gap between the two. Arbor's face turned green from anger. She hastily tossed it away as if she caught a hot potato. However, in the next second she felt like she was being pulled out of the void. It was over. Time was up. Ah! Darling Qiao Mu instantly felt like she was possessed by the god of misfortune. She had been in there for 4 hours, but all she had brought out was a tattered book. The little fellow felt like her pitiful soul received 1,000,000 points of damage. She was swiftly transported out of Maple Pavilion, and saw her master Murong Sun's grinning face as soon as she landed. All of her aggrieved emotions immediately surged up, and she pattered over and crashed into Murong Sun's arms. What is it? What is it? Murong Sun jolted in fright, but before she could say anything, the talisman matrix flickered and returned to normal. The bracelet and talisman key separated from the talisman matrix and bounced into Murong Sun's hand. At the same time, a strange iron box was tossed out of the matrix and was about to hit the back of the little fellow's head. Murong Sun hastily caught it. Our dear Qiao Mu drooped her head listlessly and glanced at the iron box listlessly. Master, let's go. And why would there be an iron box in Maple Pavilion? Judging from the little fellow's appearance, she probably did not have a bountiful harvest. She couldn't have picked up this iron box, right? As her master, she naturally could not discourage her anymore, so she carried her all the way out of Sky Peak. Murong Sun cautiously asked, Disciple, did you notice which level we reached? Do you see the numbers on the crystal platform? 6. Our dear Qiao Mu was not in high spirits, so she leaned on Murong Sun's shoulder and mumbled listlessly. No matter who entered the treasure house and ended up picking up a broken item for no reason, they would not be in a good mood. Who would care about which floor they entered? She was too embarrassed to tell Murong Sun that other than this metal box, she also picked up a lousy book. However, Murong Sun looked down at her disciple strangely and hastily smoothed her hair with a smile. It's fine, it's fine. It doesn't matter if you didn't find anything good today. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future. After escorting the child back to First Peak, Murong Sun pulled her hand and escorted her back to her own courtyard. This was the advantage of being a personal disciple. Every personal disciple would be given their own independent courtyard. Although it wasn't big, it had a living room, study, cultivation room, and even an alchemy room. Murong Sun already knew that her youngest disciple was coming, so she had already prepared everything in the room 2 months ago, so she could directly move in now. After pacifying the little fellow, Murong Sun hurried to Main Peak to speak with the sect master and left Arbor's small courtyard. Chapter 297. Arbor lay on the soft bed, propping up her chin with both hands. She stared at the worn-out book and metal box placed at the head of the bed in a daze, as if she had nothing to live for. It wasn't until a rustling sound came from the window that Arbor looked up and saw Weak Chick, who had just come back from wandering around somewhere, crawling in through the window. Coo! The little fellow couldn't be bothered to argue with it. She lay on the bed motionlessly, not even bothering to lift a finger. Her little heart was hurting right now, so she didn't want to say anything. The furry little chick jumped onto the bed and snuggled next to Arbor before finding a place to lie down comfortably. One adult and one chick lay on the bed without communicating for a long time. The little fellow's eyes stared unblinkingly at the worn-out book and box at the head of the bed, as if she was glaring at an enemy. Only after a long time did she let out a long sigh. Congratulations, Master, for entering the ranks of Level 7 Mystic Cultivators. The little tree Chochio's excited voice echoed in her mind. Only then did Arbor remember that in order to replenish the mystic energy in her body, she had continuously absorbed 17 to 18 pieces of mid-grade magnetite, and successfully advanced to a Level 7 Mystic Cultivator at Maple Pavilion. Sigh! The little fellow lay on the bed and let out another long sigh. Even if she advanced to a Level 7 Mystic Cultivator, it couldn't stop her current depressed mood. Master, why are you unhappy? Chochio's noisy voice continuously rippled in her mind. If this lousy tree was in front of her right now, she would definitely slap it to death. Master, You've advanced to a level 7 mystic cultivator now. Although you're only at the entry stage, you're still a level 7 mystic cultivator. Oh my ass. The child crawled up from the bed and grumpily said, "Hurry up and say what you have to say. Master Chocho will help you integrate the heart of paradise into the star domain right now, okay?" Chocho's excited voice kept rising. Master, are you surprised? Are you happy? Although the other parts of the star domain still can't be opened, at least you'll have Paradise Planet in the future. The child pounded the bed and said, "Stop talking nonsense, hurry up and do it." After saying so much, she actually had no idea what the lousy tree was mumbling about. "Then Master will feel a little pain," Chocho said softly, and Arbor felt a piercing pain spread through his body. It was as if her dantian had been cut open and something was embedded in it. That kind of bone-piercing pain was not something that could be described with words. How was this a little bit of pain? Before the child fainted from the pain, he cursed the 18 generations of Little Tree's ancestors in his heart. She knew that the little tree was too unreliable. Little junior sister," a soft murmur drilled into her ears, gradually waking her up. Goo. The little chick sensed that its master had woken up. It shook its green feathers and nudged her body. Arbor opened his eyes slightly and met Su Shanshan and Xue Zhao's worried gazes. Eldest senior sister? Second senior sister. At first, the child didn't understand what was going on. After a while, he realized that he had fainted from the pain caused by the small tree. Little Tree was pretending to be dead. He didn't say anything even though he knew she was awake. Mystic energy silently circulated through her meridians. After discovering that there was nothing wrong with her body, the child finally relaxed slightly. She struggled to sit up. Su Shanshan hurriedly reached out to support her and stuffed a soft cushion behind her back. "Lie down for a while more." "I'm fine, eldest senior sister." "Little fellow, if you're tired, sleep a little more." "Don't force yourself," Xue Zhao said. Chapter 298. I'm really fine. Arbor glanced at Xue Zhao helplessly. She couldn't tell her senior sisters that she had been tricked by the little tree. Xiaomu sat up straight and took out 2 blue storage talismans from her pocket. She handed them to Su Shanshan and Xue Zhao. "For you. Gifts." She had put some mid-grade magnetite and 3 peaches in each storage talisman. She had wanted to give them to her 2 senior sisters but hadn't found a chance to talk to them alone. Now was the perfect time. Su Shanshan was taken aback for a moment, and a faint smile flashed across her cold eyes. Xue Zhao was even more direct. She pounced on Xiaomu and gave her a big bear hug, smacking a kiss on her little face. "Io, our little junior sister is really awesome." Arbor's little face was red. After sending her 2 senior sisters off, she wanted to lie down for a while more, but then she heard the little tree's weak voice in her mind. Little master." Arbor chuckled coldly. "I thought you were going to play dead until tomorrow." Little Tree Chocho laughed dryly. Suddenly, it raised its voice and asked excitedly, "Master, do you want to come in now?" "Come in, you'll definitely like the master here." "Wait." Arbor hurriedly opened her inner vision and scanned her body. Then, to her surprise and understanding, she saw that her dantian, which was originally like a starry night, was completely dark. Only the little tree supporting her dantian was emitting a weak green fluorescence. Now in the front left of the starry sky, a small star was lit up, flickering with a faint light. Could it be? This was the paradise that had been integrated into the star domain. Student Arbor's eyes suddenly lit up. Xiaomu's breathing tightened. She retracted her inner vision and couldn't help but clench her fists tightly. She tried to maintain her composure and said in a calm voice, "Chocho, what you meant before was, you integrated the paradise into my dantian, right?" "Yes. Why didn't you freaking tell me that earlier? You didn't even get to the point after talking for so long." Xiaomu unconsciously rolled her eyes. Then she calmed herself down and asked softly, "Chocho, what you're saying is that I am me, and my dantian is equivalent to a star domain, right?" "Yes." Chocho gave another word. "You said that there's a main star in my domain. Even if I fully open my inner world, all the assets I have will still be less than a drop in the ocean on the main planet." "Master, you have a good memory." Chocho hurriedly flattered him. feeling that his master's calm voice contained a hint of excitement. Then when can I open up my main star? Arbor quickly went straight to the point. She finally understood what it meant when Cho kept mentioning star domain and star domain all day long. This meant that whether it was the land of heritage or the grotto heaven immortal abode, Xiaomu could refine them into her own star domain. Just like this heart of paradise. It was refined from the paradise grounds, and it had already become a part of the region of stars now. Cho had already named it Paradise Star. Then master, do you want to come in and take a look? Cho's cheerful voice rang out in the depths of her mind. Arbor pursed his lips. Okay. In the next instant, the scenery in front of her suddenly changed, and the stars shifted. As far as the eye could see, large swaths of peach blossoms flew in succession and fell down like snowflakes, staining the hem of her dress. In the evening, there seemed to be a faint ray of sunlight spilling into the depths of the peach forest. In the distance, the magnetite mine rose and fell continuously. Nearby, a stream flowed gurgling, winding its way to a jade-green lake. Master! The little white squirrel jumped excitedly and pounced toward her. Chapter 299. Chirp! The white squirrel cheerfully jumped onto Arbor's shoulder and lightly rubbed against her porcelain white neck. Arbor reached out to stroke its soft white fur in a rare occasion. Recalling what she said before, she couldn't help but crease her small brows and ask again, Cho, you still haven't answered me. When can the main planet open? Master, I'm here. Cho's cheerful voice rang next to her legs. Arbor looked down in search of the sound and saw an adorable little tree ant waving its branches at her. The little tree ant only reached her waist in height. Its 2 branches formed 2 thin arms, and its 2 round, beady eyes were embedded in the tree trunk. 4 to 5 tender leaves grew on its small, pointy head, and the leaves on its head swayed back and forth as the branches swayed. Cho. This was Arbor's first time being able to physically approach the little tree ant Cho. Previously, she had always used her inner vision to look at Cho in her dantian and at most used her apparition to approach it. MHM. Master, I am Cho. My main body can't move in the star domain. But I can break off a branch and use it as a doppelganger to help Master manage Paradise Planet. The little tree ant hopped up and down while pulling on her belt, easily jumping onto her arm and then onto her left shoulder. It kicked the little white squirrel's butt and domineeringly occupied our dear Xiaomu's left shoulder. Master, Cho missed you so much. Master, long time no see. You're becoming more and more beautiful. There was no mistaken flattery, so Cho started by flattering her. The little stoic was unmoved and expressionlessly glanced at it from the corner of her eyes. I asked you a question but you still haven't answered. Cho's beady eyes immediately drooped, and it drooped its head in indescribable guilt. You're a tree ant, aren't your expressions a bit too rich? Beak, I can take it. Arbor was already accustomed to the little tree's unreliability, so she wasn't surprised by this. Cho immediately raised its tree head and said a long string of words at an extremely fast speed. Although Master has already advanced to a level 7 mystic cultivator, it's merely a small step on the great path of cultivation. Let alone activating the main planet, it's not even possible for us to activate Fish Orchid Planet right now. Wait, the Fish Orchid Planet? The little fellow was beginning to grasp the main point of the deceptive ball's words. Master, what did you say? You said Fish Orchid Planet. Fish Orchid Planet? Did I mention Fish Orchid Planet? What is the Fish Orchid Star? The small tree's beady eyes were filled with confusion. See, what's there to say to a brainless tree? The first 3 sentences were said, but the last 3 were immediately forgotten. Xiaomu couldn't be bothered to retort, so she helplessly grabbed it and brought it to her face. Her fingertip poked the leaf on its head. Other than the main star, how many planets have I activated in this star domain? I mean before? Other than the main planet, there are other planets. The little tree Cho looked at its little master in bewilderment. Arbor took a deep breath and suppressed the lava that was about to erupt. With a stoic face, he deliberately forced a stiff smile at the little tree. Cho. Master's expression was a bit frightening. How old are you? Why is your memory so bad? Cho immediately said aggrievedly, I don't remember how old I am either. The little tree ant was flung out in a perfect arc in the air. However, it quickly ran back with tears in its eyes and hugged Arbor's little feet as it shouted, I remember, Master. Other than the main planet, we also activated this paradise planet. Arbor, haha. Chapter 300. Master, look, after this paradise merged with the star domain. It's more than 10 times bigger than before. The sapling Chocho cheerfully hugged its little master's foot and ran forward with her. Although this paradise planet is pitifully small compared to any other planet, it's still pretty good. It's already as big as 5 or 6 Shijo cities, right? Previously, your supplies stuffed the paradise to the brim. Once it merged with the star domain, look. Those supplies can only fill a tiny corner of Paradise Planet. The sapling Chocho continued to clamor. Xiaomu lowered her head to glance at the sapling. This fellow would always say thought-provoking things inadvertently, and then completely forget what he said afterwards. What should she say about it? Also, the mystic energy here is really dense, isn't it, Master? Master, if you want to come in and cultivate in the future, just call Chocho, and Chocho will immediately carry you inside. The little stoic expressionlessly looked down at the sapling. This is my Dantian, my own star domain. I can't freely enter and leave by myself? You even have to carry me inside. I can't enter by myself? Chocho looked down at its branches and shook its head, regret written all over its tree face. That won't do, Master. Your cultivation is too weak, so you can't enter and exit by yourself. You still need Chocho to help you. This time, Chocho was kicked too far into the sky by its little master, and it rolled for a long time before it could roll back. The little sapling hugged its little master's foot and immediately cried out to express its loyalty. Master, don't worry. In the future, whenever you want to enter or leave, I'll immediately fulfill your wish. How infuriating. She couldn't completely control her own Dantian's mystic domain, and still had to rely on a tree that claimed a mountain as its king. Send me out immediately. Our dear Xiaomu huffed and threw down this sentence. As soon as she stepped out of Paradise Planet, she heard several people calling Little Junior Sister outside the court. Arbor's heart skipped a beat. It seemed her senior sisters had come to find her when she disappeared just now. Looking at the sky, it was already completely dark. She had been in Paradise Planet for quite a long time. The time in Paradise Planet corresponded to the time in the outside world. When she entered Paradise Planet just now, she had already noticed that it was evening in the outside world, and it was also evening in Paradise Planet. The child hurriedly jumped off the bed. Without even putting on his shoes, he opened the door and called out, Senior Sister. Su Shanshan immediately turned her head around. Under the night sky, she was dressed in green, and her long hair was slightly scattered. Her cold face gradually relaxed a little when she turned back to meet Xiaomu's gaze. Su Shanshan hurried over to her. Little Junior Sister, where did you go just now? You're not familiar with the first peak yet, so don't run around. I know, Senior Sister. Su Shanshan's slightly cold hand held her soft and cute little hand. Although his hands were cold, his heart was burning. The food distributed by the Sky Snow Peak was quickly transported to the 3 peaks. The disciples of the 3 peaks all had a sumptuous dinner tonight. It was as lively as a festival. Murong-sun finally succeeded in her persuasion, and the sect master ordered the next day. After discussion, the 3 peaks decided that each peak would be formed by mystic cultivators above level 5 who were at least 12 years old. Every month, the 3 peaks would take turns to send a group of people out to accept missions to cover their daily expenses. Although Murong-sun was burdened by mundane affairs, going out to experience the world was also one of her cultivation methods. It not only trained her vision and strength, but also her mental state. That night, our dear Xiaomu closed the door and fiddled with that lousy book. She drew a basin of water and soaked it in. Chapter 301. Did you think that the child wanted to soak some treasure out of this broken book? Of course not. She just wanted to wash this dirty and smelly book. It would be best if it was washed rotten. If it was washed rotten, it could be thrown out along with the basin of water. She soaked the book in the basin and repeatedly soaked it. She pinched a corner of the book and took it out. She thought that the book would soften, but it didn't. It was still that hand-sewn book that looked like it would fall apart at any time. It looked like it was going to fall apart, but the pages didn't move at all. There wasn't even a trace of water stain. What was going on? The child squatted by the basin and used 2 fingers to poke at the broken book lying in the water. After a while, the child was at her wits' end. She glanced at the flickering candle flame on the table. She had an idea and ran to the table with the broken book. She lay on the table and used the candle flame to burn a corner of the book. She watched as the candle flame floated up and down through the thin pages of the book. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't burn it. What kind of book is this? The child was tired and threw the book on the table. She ran back to the bed angrily and jumped onto it. She covered her head and fell asleep. Broken book and broken iron box. She went to Maple Pavilion and took these 2 things. She would start her closed-door training tomorrow. She didn't want to see anyone that after the child fell asleep on the bed. The broken book that was thrown on the cold table suddenly emitted a red light in the middle of the night. The whole book turned into a ball of red mist and burrowed into the child's bedding. The child was sleeping soundly. Her small body was curled up in the bedding. The moment the red mist burrowed into her forehead, she felt a faint stinging pain. She suddenly opened her eyes and stared blankly for about half a minute. Then, she lifted her long eyelashes and closed her eyes tiredly. The next day, the child slept until the sun was high in the sky before he woke up. She sat on the bed and looked at the bright sunlight outside the window. She was still in a daze. So strange. Ever since she was reborn, she had never slept so late in her life. She walked around the room and patted the back of her head. She felt that the room was missing something. After washing up, the child sat at the table and poured himself a cup of herbal tea. His hand that was holding the teacup suddenly froze. His gaze fell on the corner of the table as he tried to recall yesterday's events. She clearly remembered that she had thrown that lousy book on the table. Where did the book go? She tilted her head and looked under the table, but she didn't see anything. He frowned and scanned his surroundings, but he didn't find anything out of the ordinary. There wasn't any strange scent left in the room, so it shouldn't be that someone deliberately came in to take her lousy book. Master, master. Chochio's slightly excited voice rang in her ears. Why did you come out? She glanced and saw a little tray ant tugging at the corner of her dress. Master, are you surprised? Are you happy? Chochio can come out for a short while now. The little tray ant shook Xiao Mu's skirt and chuckled. Master, it's fine as long as you have me by your side. You? Where's the coolest place? The nimble little golem suddenly jumped to the ground and lifted its foot to kick the small tree. Chochio was caught off guard and was really kicked out by the golem. How preposterous! Chochio rolled quickly and rolled back even faster. It pounced over and hung upside down on Arbor's clothes. Master, master, master. Who is this weird-looking fellow? Chapter 302. Big Treasure had been by her side for so long. So Arbor didn't believe that Chochio didn't recognize it. Xiao Mu grabbed one with each hand and pulled both of them down. She threw them on the table and left the room after saying, You two get along well. Wait, master. The little tray ant waved its 2 thin branches and jumped up from the table. Why, you should take a look at your conscience first. Xiao Mu turned around in confusion. She was about to find senior sister Su to take her on a tour of the first peak. What was there to see about her conscience? Every time she saw that lazy apparition, a certain Jojo would get angry. The apparition was so diligent in her previous life, but it became lazy in this life. This wasn't good. Master, master, there was something in your conscience in the latter half of last night. I saw that it didn't cause any damage to your conscience at all. It even seemed to be very beneficial to you, so I didn't chase it out. What? Xiao Mu lowered her head and looked at herself in confusion. There was actually an extra ball in her conscience, and it went in the middle of the night. Why didn't she notice it at all? Wait. Arbor's little face instantly darkened. When the golden talisman jade tome forcefully entered her conscience, didn't it open a small paragraph of explanation? Something about being able to stabilize the consciousness, automatically activate the power to protect the soul, and so on. If she didn't understand, then to put it simply, it should be able to protect her conscience. That was how the child understood it. But now an unknown object had entered her conscience in the middle of the night. Why didn't the golden talisman jade tome warn her? Why didn't the Golden Talisman Jade Tome take precautions? Why didn't the Golden Talisman Jade Tome chase it away? This meant that it was just bragging before. Other than teaching her how to draw talismans, what else could it do? If you want to draw talismans, then draw talismans. Why are you blindly bragging about something so profound? Are you bullying me for being uncultured? The child chuckled and returned to the room in a bad mood. She sat down on a chair. After condensing a strand of mystic conscious from mystic energy and seeping into her conscious, Qiao Mu's eyes still saw that empty conscious. Her apparition was sprawled out on her back on the ground that was crisscrossed with ravines. Her lazy appearance made the little fellow want to drag her out and give her a good beating. 12 jade slips floated quietly in midair. Sure enough, there was a ball of red mist beside the jade slip. Moreover, there was a circle around it that wrapped around quite a few milky white mystic senses. To be honest, her previous mystic conscious was pitifully meager, but ever since she advanced to become a level 7 mystic cultivator, her mystic conscious was definitely stronger than before. However, he didn't know what the red mist was for. The red mist seemed to sense that she was looking at it. It suddenly floated up and swallowed the outer layer of mystic sense into the mist ball. Arbor was shocked and hurriedly cried out, little ball, is it eating my mystic sense? Hurry up and chase it out. What is this thing? Master, don't be nervous. Look carefully. Arbor calmed his little heart and looked again with rapt attention. He saw that the red mist had spat out the few strands of mystic consciousness that it had sucked in earlier. Compared to the previous few strands, there were clearly a few more strands of profound sense that were spat out. What is it? It actually knew how to nurture mystic consciousness. Master, you don't know? The sapling's voice was a bit strange. How would I know? You already said that it came in the middle of the night. I've never seen it before. Isn't it the lousy book that Master picked up, soaked in water and roasted in fire? Chapter 303. Our dear Qiao Mu was dumbstruck for a moment before regaining her senses. Lousy book? That lousy book had run into her conscious? No wonder she hadn't seen that lousy book even after walking 2 rounds around the room. Master, this should be an inherited secret technique. Like your Golden Talisman Jade Tome, it can already change its form at will, so it must have existed in this world for a long time. As for why it was placed in your sex treasury, I don't know. Qiao paused for a moment before continuing, but based on my conjecture, this secret technique's original form was probably forged from the netherworld jade, which is why it can nourish your mystic conscious. Our dear Qiao Mu's expression became increasingly sluggish. After a while, she finally found her weak voice. You mean this lousy book originally didn't look like that? Of course. Qiao nodded. The netherworld jade is dark red and lusterless, warm to the touch, and shaped like scarlet jade. It's rare that the jade's aura can nourish mystic conscious, but the process is relatively slow. This secret technique was most likely carved out of a piece of netherworld jade. In reality, it should have been enveloped by that red mist, which is why it looks like this now. Then why did it turn into that tattered and stinking ghost from before? Our dear Qiao Mu was stupefied. I don't know. Maybe it's a hobby. Look at the Golden Talisman Jade Tome. Doesn't it also like to turn into 12 jade slips? Master, the Golden Talisman Jade Tome you originally saw was a book entirely made of pure gold. That's made from the pinnacle material of refined gold jade. So it's definitely different from those mediocre and high-grade mystic technique manuals that can be found everywhere. Our dear Qiao Mu was actually speechless. Hobby, who could erase someone else's hobby, right? This lousy book wasn't like that, but this inherited secret technique loved to turn into a lousy book. What could she do? She couldn't stop it. This fellow's original form was some netherworld jade. No wonder it was impervious to fire and water. Was it really good for a book to be so strange? She blinked. How do I make it turn back into a normal book? It was very difficult for her to read its contents with its red mist enveloping mode. Simple, Master. Actually, you just need to get it to remove the outer layer of red mist. The inherited secret technique is now in your conscious, so you can make it normal as you wish. Io! The little Treyant was hit by a fist-sized jade that flew out of the red mist and hit its head. It was immediately driven out of its conscious. Arbor, what an unreliable fellow. At the most crucial moment he would drop the ball for her. She had to rely on herself for everything. However, in the next second, Darling Qiao's consciousness that had entered her conscious was also brought out. She sat at the table with a strange expression on her face. She looked down and saw that there was a piece of dark red jade in her hand. "Oh my, this arrogant secret skill." Little Tree muttered and hurriedly said, "Master, why don't you try injecting some mystic energy into it?" Arbor nodded and glanced at the small tree. "Take Daqing and Debao back to the paradise." The two of them were too noisy, and they were interfering with her ability to read the secret technique. Little Tree had a constipated look on his face. Under the calm gaze of Arbor, he dragged Little Chick and the golem back, feeling aggrieved. Arbor placed the jade on the table and touched it with his tentacles. A thick wave of mystic energy flowed into the jade. In an instant, a line of words appeared on the jade. "Spirit Division Record. The Fated One will obtain it." This cultivation technique is divided into two parts, the Soul chapter and the Technique chapter. Before practicing this cultivation technique, you must first form a branch, otherwise you cannot practice it. Chapter 304. Branch Meridians? Xiaomu reflexively looked inside herself and saw a fork in her mystic meridians before pensively retracting her gaze. Could it be that this hair-thin branch that was different from the mystic meridians was the branch meridians mentioned in the book? The reason the book chased after her relentlessly was because it sensed the branch meridians in her body? What she thought was most likely close to the truth. This inherited secret technique already knew how to hide itself, so it might not be unable to sense her branch meridians. Arbor reached out and brushed the crimson jade on the table. As her mind moved, a faint red light flitted across the jade and leapt into her eyes. Lines of small vertical characters suspended in midair and rapidly trembled as they appeared. How to forge and strengthen the branch meridians in the body. How to control the apparition of profound consciousness. Arbor's gaze flitted past the small characters at an extremely fast speed. The more she read, the more surprised her expression became. This inherited secret skill called the Spirit Division Record was really a little unexpected. After reading it, Arbor suddenly realized that the apparition of profound consciousness also needed the support of the main body to control and train it. Her apparition of profound consciousness was lazy every day. It was also because she didn't control it and allowed it to laze around all day. Don't blame her for not knowing the reason. Although she cultivated an apparition of profound consciousness in her previous life, it took her almost 10 years of effort. Moreover, it was under the condition of her body being crippled but her mind not being crippled. It could even be said that compared to people of the same generation, she could be considered quite outstanding. Because some people may not be able to cultivate an apparition of profound consciousness even when they die. At that time, her environment was completely different from now. Under that harsh and vile environment, her heart was always filled with layers of murderous intent. She wanted to escape the treatment of a small animal. She wanted to escape the shackles of fate. She had always been constantly striving for it, living with hope amidst despair. Therefore, the state of her apparition of profound consciousness at that time was completely different from the comfortable state she was in now. Her apparition of profound consciousness, under the urging of her instincts, was desperately striving to become strong in her conscious. And now she was comfortable. Even if she was filled with anxiety about the future, in reality, her days were still much more comfortable than in her previous life. The abundance of resources allowed her to be filled with absolute confidence and composure in the face of a world filled with zombies. The appearance of her sect allowed her to obtain a living environment that was completely different from her previous life. Arbor took a deep breath and closed his eyes, going through all the floating words in his mind. The first basic level of the Spirit Division Record Soul chapter was to train the first branch meridian and condense all the profound energy in the branch meridian into profound sense, using it to skillfully control one's own manifestation of profound sense. As for the skills section, the content was also very extensive. There were descriptions of all kinds of weapons in the book. Naturally, Arbor couldn't brag until he was fat. He read through all the skill books in one day. So she chose a type of archery profound skill. Because zombies were too ugly, she didn't want to be entangled with them in close combat, so it was better to shoot them from afar. He still remembered that day when the Crown Prince had attached his mystic energy to an ordinary bow and arrow, and killed a level 3 mutated zombie in one shot. This kind of usage of mystic energy and control of the bow and arrow had probably reached the point of perfection. After all, the slightest difference could lead to a huge loss. An ordinary bow and arrow couldn't be compared to a profound weapon which could allow one to attach mystic energy to it. Once there was a slight error, the ordinary bow and arrow would be the first to be unable to withstand the crown prince's surrounding mystic energy and would be destroyed. Chapter 305. Although she didn't want to admit it, that guy was truly super strong. Arbor pursed her lips and brushed the spirit division record on the table, storing it into her conscious. Why the hell did she think of the crown prince for no reason? It must be because she was too idle recently and had to seize the time to enter closed-door cultivation. She naturally couldn't completely grasp the spirit division record with such little effort. Thankfully, this inherited secret technique was stored in her conscious, so she could read it at any time. Arbor lowered her eyes and entered inner sight. She tried her best to condense the mystic energy in her branch meridian into mystic conscious, but this process was extremely slow and painful. Compared to the first branch meridian that was as thin as a strand of hair, the mystic energy in her main meridian was extremely abundant. If she wasn't careful, she would misuse it and condense the mystic energy in her main meridian into mystic conscious. The little fellow practiced until nearly 10 o'clock in the evening, but she still hadn't successfully condensed the mystic energy in her branch meridian. She knew that she couldn't be too hasty. The more hasty she was, the worse it would be, so she opened her eyes. She saw Murong Sun sitting across the table with her chin propped up on her hand. Murong Sun was looking at her with a smile under the flickering candlelight. Little fellow, master doesn't know whether to be gratified or heartbroken that you're so hard-working. Murong Sun sighed softly and stood up to support her hand. Let's go, my disciple. Master will take you to First Peak for a stroll. At your age, ordinary children are all playful. Master doesn't know what to say about you being so serious and hard-working. Murong Sun nonchalantly picked up the child and swayed out the door with her in her arms. The entire snowy peak was shrouded in darkness, and the stars in the sky reflected the whiteness of the snow. Arbor felt that the scenery on First Peak was extremely beautiful. The pavilions and terraces were hidden under the thick white snow, occasionally revealing a bit of sharp eaves. The winding corridors were smooth and the winding paths were deep and serene. The second and third peaks opposite First Peak were lofty and majestic, with sharp cliffs and handsome peaks. Under the night sky, the entire sect was like an unfurled painting, peaceful, tranquil, and filled with poetry. The child's gaze landed in the distance, and she was nearly mesmerized. She had never known that there was such a peaceful place in this chaotic world. Murong Sun carried the child to the summit platform. The scenery here was even more delightful, and she felt like she had melded into the embrace of the snowy peak. Stars swayed in front of her eyes, and below her was a bottomless cliff with a deep ravine. Arbor clenched his small fists and said, Master, can I go to the mystical treasured land to practice from tomorrow onwards? Murong Sun couldn't help but be dumbfounded. It was a moment before she said, Child, if a bowstring is stretched too tight, it will snap. People are similar. You're still young, so you don't have to push yourself so hard. You have to work hard. The little stoic was expressionless as she said solemnly, If you don't work hard, how will you protect Master in the future? Murong Sun was dumbstruck for a moment before bursting into laughter. Master's heart is about to melt because of you, little stoic. Good. My disciple is so hard-working. Of course, Master will fully support her. Murong Sun lowered her head to glance at the child with a grin and pointed at the bottomless abyss below the summit platform. Little fellow, go down from here. It's the mystical treasured land I told you about before. Murong Sun pinched the child's face. This is our holy water sect's secret land. Jump down. Are you scared? Arbor shook his head. What could you expect a little stoic who could calmly face death to be scared of? Murong Sun leaped up with the child in her arms. Then Master will bring you down right now. Chapter 306. The speed of their descent was extremely fast, and Arbor could barely open her eyes from the gust of wind that buffeted her. She forced her eyes open to take a look and saw that the bottom of the snowy peak was covered in sharp icicles. Everything within several miles was covered in sharp icicles. If she accidentally fell on them, there was an 80% chance that she would become an ornament strung up on the icicles. Murong Soon's landing was extremely precise and landed on a small oval-shaped platform. This was the only place that was surrounded by icicles. Arbor could finally open her eyes and look around before involuntarily exclaiming in surprise. In reality, the master and disciple did not land at the bottom of the snowy peak at all because the bottom of the peak was also covered in icicles. If they fell, they would still die. However, this small platform that emerged horizontally from the icicles extended from the side of the snowy peak. When they walked closer, they could clearly see that a 2-person tall hole had been dug into the snowy mountain wall. It looked like it was naturally formed. This place enshrines the holy water. It will be extremely cold inside, so you must pay attention to using your mystic energy to protect your body. Don't let the cold air invade your body. It's not good for our mystic meridians. Murong Soon reminded her before holding the child's hand and pulling her into this natural cave. Indeed, the moment they took their first step inside, they felt an eerie chill assaulting their faces. Arbor reflexively opened the eggshell and covered her body with it. Murong Soon immediately laughed out loud when she saw it. Disciple, your eggshell is amazing. It can resist the cold, heat, wind, and rain. TSK, this is a very powerful defensive mystic weapon. It can even block a powerful attack from a level 12 mystic cultivator. Murong Soon deeply suspected that she had taken in a nouveau riche child as her disciple. The little fellow grumpily followed Murong Soon with a dark face. Master, no one will think you're mute if you don't speak right now. There are 3 levels below this mystical treasured land. Murong Soon explained with a smile. The lowest level enshrines the holy water and is the coldest. Before you become a great level 10 mystic cultivator, don't rashly step inside. I'm afraid the cold air will harm your mystic meridians. You can cultivate on the first level for now. However, the cold air here is very dense, so you can't cultivate for more than 10 days at a time. Remember what Master said. Otherwise, when things reach an extreme, they will move in the opposite direction. If the foundation of the profound veins is damaged, it will not be good. Arbor looked at the icicles hanging upside down on the walls. The spikes on the ground should have been smoothed out by the people of his sect. When he stepped on them, it didn't affect his feet. He just felt a chill. Fortunately, she had a defensive profound artifact on her, and the profound energy here was extremely dense. Cultivating in seclusion here would definitely yield twice the results with half the effort. Arbor nodded. Murong Soon glanced at her worriedly. Do you want Master to stay here with you? No need. Arbor shook his head. Master, just come and pick me up in 10 days. Murong Soon helplessly glanced at the child and nodded. All right then. You must be careful here by yourself. If you need anything, use the messaging talisman to call Master. All right. From the second day onwards, everyone in the sect knew that their youngest junior sister had gone to the mystical treasured land to cultivate diligently. Since little junior sister was already so hardworking, how could they, as her senior sisters, fall behind? From then on, the entire Holy Water sect entered a state of making the best use of their time to cultivate. In the beginning, Arbor was brought out by Murong Soon every 10 days. 3 months later, she only came out every month. During this time, she really learned how to draw talisman matrices through the golden talisman jade tome. The first talisman matrix she drew was the Mystic Energy Gathering Talisman Matrix. Chapter 307. The Mystic Energy Gathering Talisman Matrix required 60 Mystic Energy Gathering Talismans. Right now, she only had 120 blank talismans left. As a result, she used up half of the blank talismans to draw 60 Mystic Energy Gathering Talismans. This was the simplest beginner-level talisman matrix, but it took her about 2 days in Arbor to set it up. She placed the Mystic Energy Gathering Talisman Matrix on the first floor of the Mystic Treasured Land. This way, every senior sister who came to the Mystic Treasured Land to cultivate could experience a flying surge of mystic energy. The beginner-level Mystic Energy Gathering Talisman Matrix gathered all of the rich mystic energy in this place into the matrix. In the future, everyone's cultivation speed would be 1 to 2 times faster if they cultivated inside the matrix compared to the outside world. Our dear Xiao Mu wholeheartedly immersed herself in arduous cultivation. Aside from closed-door cultivation, she consulted her master about martial arts. Every time Xiao Mu came out of the mystic treasured land, she would be carried back by Murong Sun, and the master and disciples would joyfully enjoy a sumptuous feast. Afterwards, Murong Sun would keep Xiao Mu by her side for a few days to test her and guide her attentively. Xiao Mu's cultivation increased by leaps and bounds with each passing day, stimulating all of the senior sisters in the sect to work harder. Only the heavens knew how large the shadow in the senior sisters' hearts was when they had such a terrifyingly talented cultivation maniac by their side. They felt like they couldn't stop. If they stopped for even a moment, they would be left behind by little junior sister, who was running ahead of them. The gap couldn't be too wide, right? Otherwise, where would the senior sisters put their faces? Over the years, the little fellow's figure grew quite a bit. Now that darling Xiao had reached the age of a golden hairpin, she didn't allow anyone to carry her anymore. Because of this, Murong Sun was both regretful and gratified. Her heart as a teacher was melancholy for a very, very long time. The sect master's peak was filled with verdant green bamboos. In the past few years, the sect's disciples frequently went out on missions, so even if they weren't very wealthy, they had no problems with basic food and clothing. Sky Peak even accumulated quite a bit of surplus food. The sect master's days were also quite good. She had just renovated a row of bamboo buildings 2 days ago. At this moment, the sect master was leaning on her brocade couch, waving the cattail leaf fan in her hand, fanning herself from time to time while calling out, "Yo yo 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 hey." The disciple guarding the door hurriedly ran in and hurriedly said, Sect Master, Senior Uncle Murong is here. Please speak louder." "Ah, hurry up." The sect master hurriedly lay down and asked the little disciple to carry the bedding to her body. She kept moaning and groaning. Murong Sun's indifferent voice came from outside the door. The little disciple said worriedly, "Peak Master, Sect Master has been sick for several days. He doesn't have any appetite for food or drink. He looks like he has lost a lot of weight." Murong Sun, "Master, your disciple is here." Murong Sun stepped through the door and her lips involuntarily twitched when she saw the dying sect master being pressed down on the bed by 2 sheets. "Sun." The sect master sighed. Murong Sun hummed in acknowledgement and went to the table to pour herself a cup of tea. She calmly looked at her childlike master. "I'm afraid Master really won't make it this time," the sect master stuttered. She raised her trembling hand and took out a token from her chest. "From today onwards, you are the 17th generation sect master of my holy water sect. Master, the date for the 3 sects competition has been set." Murong Sun looked at the sect master with a grin. "Did you know? The 5 factions initiated a provocation this time, and have already sent out a competition invitation. They plan to join the 3 sects competition and compete with us." Chapter 308. When the sect master heard this, she hastily lifted the bedding and jumped up. "What? The 5 factions sent out a competition invitation? Where's the invitation? Where is it?" the sect master asked in displeasure. "I didn't receive it, so I won't compete with them." Murong Sun, "The other 2 factions have already received the 5 factions competition invitation." Murong Sun said, "Based on the time, the 5 factions representatives should be coming to the foot of our great snow mountain for the competition invitation in the next 2 days. Sect Master, you just have to remember to get up and accept it." The sect master's outstretched hand suddenly froze. She looked down at herself and saw that she was wearing a white undergarment and hopping barefoot on the ground. How did she forget to pretend to be sick in her excitement? When she looked up again, Murong Sun threw her aback in capital letters. It angered her so much that she slapped the table and cursed, "Wicked disciple." On First Peak summit platform, a figure in light-colored clothes stood upright like a jade sculpture and looked up at the distant horizon. A wisp of drifting cloud illuminated the snowy peak in a fragrant white. Shriek. A cyan dot in the distance gradually stretched into a long cyan shadow and swiftly flew over. As it got closer, the beautiful cyan wings folded away, and a fluffy little chick flapped its wings and jumped onto the little girl's shoulder. It cooed twice and rubbed itself against the little girl's face. The little fellow turned her frosty face away and expressionlessly refused to let the chick rub itself against her. Caw. The little chick flapped its wings. Was little master in a bad mood? Arbor did not look at it. Her gaze was fixed in a certain direction for a long time, and her eyes that were as dark as deep pools dangerously narrowed bit by bit. 3 crow gold arrows were already in place on the pure black crow repeating crossbow in her hand. She raised her arm and aimed the crow repeating crossbow at a certain direction in the sky. Miss Chow's voice was bone-chilling and emotionless, as if it had been fished out of ice and snow. Who dares to trespass on Holy Water Sect's first peak without notifying us? Get down here immediately, Miss Chow icily said. Otherwise I'll shoot you to death immediately. Bear the consequences. In the distant horizon, a green-headed eagle was advancing at full speed toward First Peak. The 3 people led by Quan Dao Dong were standing on the eagle's back in high spirits, preparing to enjoy the admiration of the Holy Water Sect's female disciples. Suddenly, a cold voice interrupted the trio's unrealistic fantasy. Quan Dao Dong immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation. He stood on the green-headed eagle's back and shouted loudly, Myriad Faction's eldest disciple, Quan Dao Dong, has come to the Holy Water Sect on behalf of the 5 factions under my master's orders to submit a competition invitation. This fellow thought that by saying this, the other party would definitely give face to the 5 sections. However, if you don't get down here within 3 breaths, die. An icy cold, machine-like voice instantly rang out. It was neither loud nor soft, neither light nor heavy, but it alarmed the entire Holy Water Sect's first peak. Eldest senior brother, we should go down quickly. Among the 2 young disciples standing behind Quan Dao Dong, one of the female disciples said in a trembling voice. Quan Dao Dong was also a little flustered. He wasn't sure if the girl with the icy voice would really disregard the reputation of the 5 gates and attack him. He didn't dare to take this risk. Compared to his life, his own life was still more important. Quan Dao Dong didn't care about acting mighty anymore, and quickly pressed the green-headed eagle down. Less than a second after the green-headed eagle landed, Su Shanshan and the other female disciples, who had heard the news, swiftly rushed over. At the same time, the crow gold arrow in Arbor's hand was released with a whoosh and flew toward the bloodless Quan Dao Dong. Chapter 309. Quan Dao Dong promptly unsheathed the long saber at his waist, and used it to block the rapidly approaching black gold arrow. After a crisp, ding sound, the profound energy that exploded from the collision of the 2 weapons sent Quan Dao Dong flying backwards on the spot. Quan Dao Dong's feet dragged on the ground, and due to inertia, he kept retreating backward. His complexion changed from pale to astonishment and then to ashen from shock. On the summit platform, a little girl dressed in a plain robe as cold as an icy pond suddenly flew down. Her toes lightly tapped on the ground, and she slowly drifted forward a few steps. When she stood in front of Quan Dao Dong and the other 2, they were shocked to realize that the little girl in front of them was only 12 or 13 years old, but she was the reincarnation of a celestial being with an icy disposition. A pair of eyes that resembled ice and snow pearls emotionlessly stared at them. They could only see a desolate coldness in her eyes that mercilessly spread. Quan Dao Dong examined himself. He was already a level 8 mystic cultivator, and could be considered one of the best of the younger generation in the sect. But now, he couldn't even withstand a single attack from a nameless girl from the Holy Water Sect. When did the younger generation of the Holy Water Sect become so valiant? This information was truly too overwhelming. Quan Dao Dong couldn't conceal the shock in his eyes, and he forcefully swallowed the blood that was about to spurt out. He desperately suppressed the mystic energy turbulence in his body to avoid embarrassing himself in front of the Holy Water Sect. Swish! The black gold arrow, which was slightly deflected by the collision, spun in a small circle before shooting towards Quan Dao Dong at an extremely fast speed. What? Quan Dao Dong's small eyes widened slightly. At this moment, although he was still able to stand firm, it was impossible for him to take another arrow in his current weak state. At the critical moment, he kicked the green-headed eagle beside him over, and used it to block in front of him. Chi! A light sound was heard. A pitch-black arrow pierced through one of the green-headed eagle's wings, eliciting a mournful wail. "You guys are too." Quan Dao Dong opened his mouth, but how could he hold back the blood he was suppressing with all his might? He spat it out. The young man and woman behind Quan Dao Dong hastily walked up. The woman's face was flushed red as she reprimanded angrily. "Is this how the Holy Water sect receives the disciples of the 5 factions? What you're doing is too overbearing. Anyone who doesn't pay respects to the mountain gate and doesn't go through the normal procedures and trespasses will be killed," Su Shanshan said coldly. "It's you who didn't follow the rules. Go back to where you came from." The young man hurriedly said, "Misunderstanding, misunderstanding, misunderstanding. We are disciples of the Myriad faction. We are here on Master's orders as representatives of the 5 factions to deliver the competition invitation to the Holy Water sect." The man scrambled forward and handed a gilded invitation to Su Shanshan, who had a cold expression on her face. Su Shanshan threw the invitation card at the young man's face. "Then you've come to the wrong place. You have to pay a visit to the sect leader's peak. This is the first peak." Scram! Xue Xiao crossed her arms and stood lazily behind Su Shanshan. Hearing this, she smiled faintly. The man's face hurt from the slap, and he looked like he was about to cry. When his senior brothers from the sect found out that he and eldest senior brother were coming to pay a visit to the Holy Water sect, they were secretly envious. They said that the Holy Water sect had a group of noble and elegant goddesses. When they made a flashy entrance, they would definitely be surrounded and worshipped by the goddesses. They really should also come and experience the feeling of being slapped in the face. Chapter 310. Quan Dao Dong gritted his teeth and stooped down to pick up the invitation that had been flung to the ground while enduring the humiliation. His gaze shifted to Su Shanshan's side, and he cupped his hands at the expressionless young girl. "May I know this little senior sister's name? I've never seen you before." Quan Dao Dong really wanted to confirm Arbor's identity, so that he could immediately report to his master when he returned. Even as a level 8 mystic cultivator, he couldn't withstand a single blow from the little girl. It could be imagined that within the 5 factions, it would be difficult for this girl to find a match. Unexpectedly, the little girl only glanced at him coldly, then turned around and left without saying anything. Quan Dao Dong felt that he had been deeply insulted. This girl was completely looking down on him. Her meaning was, "You mortals aren't worthy of knowing my name, right?" How could he have known that Miss Chow just couldn't be bothered to waste her breath on him? What could a little stoic, who had always been taciturn in front of strangers, say to him? Wasn't this forcing her against her will? Quan Dao Dong wanted to head to the sect master's peak, but he discovered that his green-headed eagle had collapsed in a pool of blood and was completely unable to crawl. He reluctantly picked up the green-headed eagle and held his breath as he hurried to the sect master's peak with his junior brother and sister. Miss Chow's section break. Central Palace's North Garden Brocade Pavilion. Queen Zhao was smiling as she looked at the 3 young ladies sitting in front of her. Each of them looked to be around 15 or 16 years old, and looked extremely dignified and virtuous. The queen was currently chatting with the 3 young ladies when her personal elderly nanny quickly walked over and curtsied outside the brocade pavilion. Huaxian, is His Highness still handling government affairs in the southern study? The elderly nanny quickly shook her head. This servant only found out after going to the Eastern Palace that His Highness was invited by the 2 young sirs of the Qin estate early in the morning. So it's that Qin family from the Elixir Patrician family. Queen Zhao nodded pensively. Didn't this child not have much contact with the 2 young sirs of the Qin estate before? Why was he now? I heard from Xiao 11Z that the Qin estate sent people to invite him several times, but His Highness rarely responded, the elderly nanny said softly. Queen Zhao knitted her brows. She didn't know if it was her misperception, but she felt that this child was intentionally avoiding her. It had been like this several times. Every time she invited a young lady from a minister's family into the palace, the crown prince would always leave the palace early. Was it easy being a mother? His son was already 18 years old, but he didn't even have a close friend by his side. It really made people feel anxious just looking at him. It's fine if you don't want to take a concubine, but you can at least have 2 more people by your side. They can also be considerate to you and serve you well. Consort Chang's family's great king's son Mo Jiao had taken in dozens to hundreds of secondary concubines and had given birth to more than one son. Whenever Queen Zhao thought of those sour words that Consort Chang had said, she felt extremely stifled. Looking at the three dignified and beautiful ladies in front of her, Queen Zhao suddenly lost interest in talking. She waved her hand and had the three ladies withdraw. What's the point of being so passionate about it? However, her son didn't cooperate at all. Queen Zhao angrily wiped her chest with an embroidered handkerchief. Go to the Qin estate and see what His Highness is doing. Your Highness, Sephora Flower Palace's Xiao Enzi requests an audience. Head Palace maid Hexiang quickly stepped forward to report. Queen Zhao frowned slightly, unable to restrain the displeasure in her heart. What does she want now? Does she think that she can poke the heavens just because she's pregnant? Tell him that this consort is tired. Your Highness, Xiao Enzi has come to ask for medicine on Consort Zheng's orders. Chapter 311. A harsh glint flashed through Queen Zhao's eyes. Someone, drag out that dog slave who's making a fuss and flog him to death. Yes. The head palace maid, Hexiang, immediately bent her knees and accepted the order. She then walked over with a row of nannies with round waists and thick arms. With one hand on the left and the other on the right, they picked up the thin and weak eunuch and walked out of the garden. Xiao Enzi immediately trembled, his teeth chattering as he continued to shout, This servant is here on Consort Zheng's orders. Your Highness, this servant is here on Consort Zheng's orders. Slap him. Queen Zhao angrily rebuked, interrupting Xiao Enzi's words. She slammed her hand heavily on the table. A servant girl with a stern face and a ferule immediately walked out from behind Hexiang. Xiao Enzi, who was being held down by two nannies, quickly let out a blood-curdling scream. The great king has arrived. The consort Zheng has arrived. The great king, Your Highness, save me, Your Highness. Your Highness, Xiao Enzi is only here on Your Highness's orders to ask for medicine. Who would have thought that the queen would beat Xiao Enzi without distinguishing between right and wrong? Xiao Enzi was held down by two nannies and continuously struggled to shout. At this time, his cheeks were already red and swollen from the ferule. Whenever he made a sound, blood would continuously flow from the corners of his mouth. Your Highness, what are you doing? The great king of Mo Kingdom, Mo Lei, walked over with the pot-bellied consort Zheng. The great king was dressed in a household brocade robe. He was about 50 years old and his eyes were a bit listless. His face carried a trace of age and exhaustion. On the other hand, Consort Zheng, who was beside the great king, was in her 20s. She was as beautiful and delicate as a flower. At this time, Consort Zheng's figure was seductively pressed against the great king's side. She held his arm and gently stroked her slightly bulging belly with one hand as she looked provocatively at Queen Zhao. Great king, tell big sis queen to stop. Consort Zheng rubbed herself against the great king's arm and exclaimed, Xiao Enzi is about to be beaten to death by big sister. Great king, a country has its laws and a family has its rules. Consort Zheng allowed this servant to trespass into the palace, so this servant should be punished. As for Consort Zheng, on account of the fact that she is pregnant with the great king's dragon child, this consort will spare her for the time being. Consort Zheng was so angry that her nose was about to become crooked. She glared at Queen Zhao fiercely. She then turned around and hooked her arms around the great king of Mo Kingdom like a little bird. The weak Qian Qian cried, Great king, sister is too much of a bully. Hurry up and tell her. Mo Lei's expression was a little awkward. Queen, why do you have to be angry with Gui Fei? Gui Fei is still young and doesn't know any better. Just give in to her a little. Men. Queen Zhao's breath was stuck in her chest, and she almost fainted from anger. How many times had the great king complained that she was old? No woman could tolerate this kind of words. Whoosh, an arrow suddenly shot into Xiao Enzi's throat. Before the little eunuch could hide his triumphant expression, he was shocked to find thick blood flowing out of his neck. His whole body fell back and heavily fell to the ground. A group of imperial guards nervously surrounded them. The leader, Hitian, held a bow in one hand and waved the other as he shouted, Protect the great king. Be careful of the corpse puppet's pounce. The great king's hand that was holding Consort couldn't help but tremble. Consort covered her small mouth in shock and couldn't help but cry out. The great king's heart trembled whenever he heard the words, corpse puppet. His Highness the Crown Prince has arrived. Following the announcement, a slender jade-white figure walked over with large strides. Chapter 312. Royal Father, Royal Mother, are you all right? The Crown Prince walked over quickly. He was dressed in plain clothes and had his hair tied up with a jade crown. His face was handsome, and his bearing was unparalleled in the world. There was a faint smile on his lips. Compared to a few years ago, the Crown Prince had become more mature and steady. His phoenix eyes were calm, hiding all the sharpness in their depths. The old great king of the Mo kingdom turned to look at his son with a slightly rich expression. Consort felt like her mouth was stuffed with a duck egg. All her words were stuck in her throat. Royal Mother, your son came late and frightened you. The Crown Prince reached out to support the teary-eyed Queen Zhao and apologized with a guilty expression. Queen Zhao was a bit confused, but she subconsciously reached out to stop the Crown Prince from bowing and apologizing. The Crown Prince turned around and pretended to reprimand He Tian. Hurry and clean up this corpse puppet's body. Remember to burn it and don't let it counterattack and hurt anyone else. Yes, Your Highness. He Tian waved his hand with a serious expression and led a group of Imperial guards forward. They lifted Xiao Enzi's body and left. Wait. Consort watched in shock as Xiao Enzi was carried away. She turned around and tugged at the Great King's sleeve with unusual resentment. Great King, look at the Crown Prince. How could Xiao Enzi be a corpse puppet? The Crown Prince was simply using this as a pretext to make a fuss. He was pointing at a deer as a horse to target her. Damn it! Xiao Enzi could normally help her deal with many people and handle many filthy matters. With his inexplicable death, she lost a capable assistant. Noble Consort truly went for wool and came home shorn. She was so infuriated that her heart and lungs ached. The old great king patted his beloved concubine's arm and comforted. Don't be scared, don't be scared. The Crown Prince already got rid of the corpse puppet. Consort was so angry that she fell backwards. He already said that Xiao Enzi wasn't a corpse puppet. Great King! Consort tugged at the great king's sleeve. Emole stole a glance at the queen and coughed lightly. Queen, the Zhuben tribe offered a bottle of shark pearl powder as a tribute last time. I'll give it to you as a reward. That now. Before the great king could finish his words, he secretly glanced at the queen's face, which was getting worse and worse. Ever since noble Consort became pregnant, she hasn't been able to eat or sleep well, and her complexion is wan and sallow. This humble one thinks that that bottle of shark pearl powder should be of some use to her. The old king braced himself and didn't finish speaking. She was interrupted by the Crown Prince with a chuckle. Shark pearl powder? Mother gave it to me long ago. Consort Zheng's eyes were filled with hope as she looked at the Crown Prince with a flushed face. Her little hand kept tugging at the great king's sleeve. However, the great king felt that his son's gaze was strange. He braced himself and said, Then, Grand Crown Prince, this bottle. Last time you climbed a tree and accidentally fell down and hurt his butt. Father, you know about this, right? I know. The great king coughed. Now that Ewer was inexplicably brought up, he felt that the Crown Prince wouldn't say anything good. The great king and the noble consort looked at each other in dismay. This bottle of shark pearl powder was later used to wipe Ewer's butt. The face of the old nanny beside the queen trembled slightly, but she forced herself to hold back her laughter and kept a straight face. Consort Zheng's pretty face instantly turned green. The great king also looked at his son with a dumbfounded expression. For a moment he was actually at a loss for words. Consort Zheng wanted to use the precious shark pearl powder to wipe her face, but Ewer used it to wipe his butt. What could the great king say? Consort Zheng was so angry that she cried. She turned around and left quickly. However, His Highness the Crown Prince said to the great king with a serious expression, Father, did I say anything wrong? Oh right, Ewer also said that the shark pearl powder should be fake and useless. The great king was speechless. What should I do if I feel stifled? Chapter 313. Looking at the Crown Prince's serious face, the Great King was completely speechless. In the end, he could only leave with a flick of his sleeves. Queen Zhao stood next to the Crown Prince and watched the Great King leave with a deep gaze. She didn't look away for a long time. Mother. Emolian frowned. If Jung He is too much of an eyesore, just find an excuse to get rid of her. Why bother waiting for someone else? Crown Prince, don't interfere in this matter. Queen Zhao hurriedly pulled her son's hand and said softly, a mere consort Zheng is naturally insignificant. Moreover, the entire Zheng family is only a small aristocratic family that has only been in the capital for less than 20 years. It's just that. It's said that the main family of the Zheng family is in Shuntian Prefecture. The queen's voice slowly trailed off as she whispered a few words to her son. Hehe, Shuntian Prefecture again. A trace of impatience flitted through the Crown Prince's eyes. Shuntian Prefecture's hands seemed to have stretched too far. Did they really think that no one in this world could deal with them? On the other side, after the Great King came out of the palace, he hurriedly chased after his beloved concubine. Consort Zheng walked and stopped in front. She was very angry that the old Great King didn't chase after her to coax her. She had actually been waiting for a while on the path in the imperial garden. Her hands twisted the handkerchief at her fingertips as she continuously twisted her fingers. At this moment, she saw the corner of the Great King's clothes flash past. She hurriedly turned her head and deliberately stomped heavily on the stone tiles to walk forward. The old Great King hurriedly chased after her, calling out beloved concubine, as he pulled Consort Zheng into his arms. Great King, look at the Crown Prince. The words he said. He doesn't take me seriously at all. Consort Zheng cried as she threw herself into the Great King's arms. She stomped her feet and said, last time, the Crown Prince directly called this consort Jung He in front of this consort. This consort is no longer the dancer from back then. The Crown Prince is clearly looking down on me. The old Great King hurriedly hugged Consort Zheng and comforted her. Beloved consort, we will properly talk to him tomorrow. What tomorrow? Noble Consort Zheng angrily flung away the old king's hand and angrily said without thinking. This concubine heard that the queen gave birth at Five Lakes Villa back then. There were rumors that the Crown Prince was not the queen's son. Look at him, which part of him resembles the Great King? Moreover, the Crown Prince's temperament is completely unlike the Great King or the queen. Shut up. The Great King suddenly pushed Consort Zheng away and glared at her angrily. Great King, I'm doing this for your sake. I don't want to see the Great King being kept in the dark. Consort Zheng's tears flowed down her cheeks, making her look very beautiful. However, the king turned hostile at the drop of a hat, and a slap landed on Noble Consort Zheng's fair and tender face. Noble Consort Zheng cried out in alarm as her entire body fell backwards. Her personal maidservants hurriedly rushed over and cushioned her with their bodies as cushions. Noble Consort Zheng didn't have much of an impact when she fell into the crowd, but it scared her so much that her face turned ghastly pale. She looked at the old king, who was unable to restrain his fury, in complete bewilderment. Ever since she followed the Great King, she had never seen the Great King get angry at her. At the same time that she felt stifled in her heart, Noble Consort Zheng's entire body trembled in fright. The Crown Prince is the heir to the throne that we personally appointed. He is our biological son. No one can slander him. The old Great King waved his hand furiously and stared at Consort Zheng as if he wanted to eat her alive. Speak, who was it that was gossiping in your ear? We're going to chop her up right now. Consort Zheng kicked an iron plate this time. She cried until her whole body shook and her eyes rolled back. She cried out repeatedly, Great King, it was I who said the wrong thing, it was I who. Chapter 314. Someone send Consort Zheng back to Sephora Flower Palace. Stay in the palace for the next 3 days and reflect on yourself. Remember what you should say and what you shouldn't say in the future. The Great King waved his hand and ordered someone to send Consort Zheng back, completely ignoring his beloved concubine's wailing. When the news reached the Eastern Palace's southern study, it was already close to evening. The Crown Prince was rather surprised by the scene in the Imperial Garden. The Night Pavilion's captain, Mei Yi, stood solemnly in front of the crown prince with his head lowered. There was no smile on his grave and stern face as he asked seriously, "Your Highness, should we deal with her?" The crown prince waved his hand and said, "Let her be." This wasn't the first or second time this kind of thing had been said. The one with the biggest reaction wasn't him, nor was it Imperial Mother. Instead, it was Imperial Father. Every time this kind of rumor reached the old king's ears, he would fly into a rage and insist on executing all those who spread the rumor in an earth-shattering manner. Since it would only end in failure in the end, Emolian naturally couldn't be bothered to deal with it. "How is Shijiao City these days?" "It's very peaceful," Mei said calmly. "Ever since that wave of people was cleared out a year ago, no one has harassed the Chao family anymore." The crown prince put down the teacup in his hand and curled his lips. "What other news is there?" Mei's voice grew calmer. "The three-sect competition is officially set to be on the 14th of the 8th month. The 5 factions sent representatives to the 3 sects to personally send a competition invitation, intending to participate in this 3-sect competition." The crown prince's phoenix eyes immediately lit up and glowed faintly. "Why didn't you say so earlier?" This news was much more useful than any of the previous pieces of news. The Great King plans to go to Xixia Valley to watch the competition. Mei paused slightly before continuing. "It's the location of the 3-sect competition?" Then, Mei said in a rather serious voice, "Before the Great King leaves, he will probably leave all state affairs to Your Highness to handle as usual." The crown prince's expression was calm. Mei couldn't see any hint of displeasure on the crown prince's peerlessly handsome face. However, he could sense the crown prince's terrifying emotions that were about to erupt. His Highness must be feeling heartbroken. His Highness must be thinking, "After all this time, it turns out that I'm a left-behind child." The crown prince patted Mei's shoulder and said calmly, "Mei, your subordinate is here." Mei lowered his head. He wouldn't tell His Highness that he was secretly laughing in his heart. "You said before that Hidden Flower will bring people to Yellow Mountain tomorrow to exterminate that generation of corpse puppets, right?" Okay. Tell Hidden Flower to come back. You go tomorrow." The crown princess stood up and slowly walked out of the study, leaving behind a stupefied student, Mei, who was slowly pondering over her words. "Your Highness, wasn't this a bit too much?" "Your Highness, this subordinate is from the Night Pavilion. Our main responsibility is to gather and transmit information. Can't you be more clear about the division of labor? Please don't scam me." The crown prince turned his head in surprise. "What did you just say?" "This prince feels that for someone like you who dares to stab a knife into this prince's heart, a small punishment like exile is too insignificant. Shouldn't I think of a better way to trap you?" "Nothing, Your Highness." Mei instantly understood the hint in His Highness's eyes. He immediately knelt on one knee and obediently accepted the order. "Yes, Your Highness. This subordinate will do it right away." Crown Prince Emo snickered as he watched his subordinate jump out of the window and flee for his life like a rabbit. There were still 2 months, right? In 2 months, he would be able to see his expressionless baby. Don't worry, when the time came, he would definitely trick his old father into staying at home to take care of things. How could something as lousy as Regent compare to seeing darling Chao? Chapter 315. The Great Snow Mountain outside Five Moon City was originally deserted except for the Holy Water Sect's entrance. The Great Snow Mountain snowed all year round and was abnormally cold, so it was not suitable for people to live there. However, in recent years, there were villagers who continuously moved to the foot of the Great Snow Mountain and settled outside the Holy Water Sect's entrance. It was for no other reason than their safety near the Great Snow Mountain. There were basically no zombies at the foot of the Great Snow Mountain. It was rare to see one, so as long as they immediately reported it to the Holy Water Sect, the sect would immediately send disciples down the mountain to eliminate all the dangers nearby. The world was hard and life was not easy. The commoners only wished for a peaceful life. In recent years, some of the animals and plants in the nearby suburbs had started to mutate. Only the vegetation and animals around the Great Snow Mountain were the same as before. Thus, no matter how cold the Great Snow Mountain was, after the news spread, Many Chou Kingdom citizens and residents of nearby tribes were willing to move out of the city and settle down at the foot of the Great Snow Mountain. After several years, a sizable village had formed at the foot of the Great Snow Mountain. The villagers named it Xianghe Village, representing the peace and prosperity they hoped for. Today, when it was close to midnight, the men and women who had gone out early in the morning to hunt snow chickens and other animals, dig up vegetation and mushrooms, and pick wild fruits all returned. Although the Great Snow Mountain was covered in deep snow all year round, there was still a lot of edible food. Such an abundance of wilderness resources made the villagers living here feel extremely blessed. At this time, dusk had fallen, and the people who had returned from a day's work all led their children home. On the main mountain path, 3 exhausted figures, 1 in front and 2 behind, left a long trail of footprints in the snow. The children looked at them curiously and were immediately carried home by their parents. A little girl who was squatting outside the door playing with snow patted the snowball in her hand and stood up. She blinked and suddenly pointed at the 3 people and asked crisply, "Mother, didn't those 3 people fly up the mountain on a big bird in the morning? Why are they walking down now?" The little girl's mouth was covered by her mother, so the woman did not dare to cause trouble. She quickly carried the child inside and immediately closed the door. When the 3 people came, they had fiercely shown off their might at Xianghe Village. Quan Daodong specially ordered the green-headed eagle to circle the village several times, so that those ignorant villagers could admire them. Thus, many villagers recognized them now. To this old man, exhausted, Quan Daodong walked up and wanted to say something. The old man, with a pale face, quickly slammed the wooden door in front of Quan Daodong's face. Every family shrank back into their homes and closed. No one dared to pay them any attention. Quan Daodong was so angry that his face turned pale. He wished he could explode on the spot and kill all these audacious villagers right here and now. However, he also knew that the nature of this was very serious. At that time, Myriad's sect would inevitably become the target of public criticism. Not only would it be suppressed by the 3 sects, but it might even face the pursuit of all the righteous sects and people on Sikong planet. Fong Moon Mountain Sect Star Star Mountain Star Star Mountain Sun Sun Moon Star 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 A Day Snow Fong Sun Sex Heaven Snow Mountain Sex Snows. But now, looking at the hundreds of houses in the village with their doors tightly shut, Quan Daodong was really angry.